Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Julianne Jackson. Julianne is the first female RI down at Ranger School. She's working down at 6th RTB, working the Florida phase. Before that, she was in the 82nd Airborne, where she earned her Ranger tab as an infantryman. All the links to her socials in the show description. Today's episode was made possible by Tandler's Tallow, also known as Tandler's Trying Hard on Instagram. Tandler's Tallow is a veteran / SOF operated and owned natural skincare and personal hygiene products company made with grass-fed beef tallow. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Precision Wellness Group helps you restore balance, unlock vitality through bioidentical hormone therapy and evidence-based personalized telemedicine. Dr. Taylor Bosley is a board-certified physician, a U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. So he knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get you there. And he's an actual doctor who can prescribe you actual medicine. So if hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy, peptides, something you've been thinking about for a while now, or just looking into, look no further than Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. I'll have links to their socials and website in the show description, along with Julianne Jackson and Tandler's Tallow. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Julianne Jackson, welcome to Lesser Known Operators. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here. I'm excited about it.
It was an honor. You've had a standing invitation for quite a while now, ever since I upset my audience by having Jess Tandler on the show.
Oh man, you talk about the comments going absolutely wild.
Whatever. I would even rile them up. I'm like, I got so many followers from that. And I forgot to give her a shout out the other night, Jess Tandler at Tandler's Tallow.
Love
That
Jess.
one reel, I got so many followers, and so did she, from people losing it in the comments. And then the people who know. See, there's two ways we can start this show today. We can start with violence, or we can start with, let's dance around. But the reason you and I are talking here today is one thing leads to another.
I think sometimes violence is the answer. So, it might as well start with it.
That's okay. That's okay. Just because of who you are and the pride you have in the things you're doing, and she did, and anybody, really anybody that has in their somehow, someone somewhere thinks anyone's accomplishments somehow diminish their own accomplishments. And that's not the case. It's not the case. I don't think so, at least.
No, it shouldn't be like that at all. And Jess, I've known Jess for several years. She was actually my PL for an amount of time when I was in the 82nd, and she has always handled that with class and grace. And I, appreciated having her as a friend and seeing her on the show and all of the content that she provided and that she gave, and then also the comments that it just leads to an open conversation and a discussion about really how people get so upset and how they really love to discredit anybody's accomplishments just because it might be different, or it might be something that they didn't think was possible or should be possible, therefore that makes it okay for them to say something like that.
That's other people. It's bad enough when other people do that. We do it to ourselves also, though, as well. We feel like we aren't worthy of the accomplishments that we achieve. We have imposter syndrome, or we downplay. A common thing in the people will hit me up with is like, oh, I'm so glad you had this guy on from this obscure special operations unit, or if something people didn't know. I'm like, yeah, everybody can come on that I deem as operating as a high level. And it's very subjective on my part, but at least the show leaves me a lot of leeway. And one thing I hope with the show is to be like, yeah, be proud of what you did. It might not suck for other people, but it sucked for you to get to where you were. Be proud of it. And don't let people bring you down and be depressed by yourself primarily. Don't bring yourself down,
It's is sometimes difficult to not do that to yourself because, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think it's very easy for people to compare themselves or compare their careers, their accomplishments, their achievements. And therefore they create that imposter syndrome that you were talking about, which is where you feel like you don't deserve where you are, or you don't deserve to be where you are, or what you do. And everybody's going, highly motivated people for sure, I think, go through that quite a bit when they are always motivated to do something else and to do more and to achieve more. And it is very difficult to not be so hard on yourself. And then, like you said before, the community does, while we have the military community is a great community. We have a lot of really good people. Um, we do also have a very, how do I put this? Like, the accountability that we hold ourselves to sometimes can be kind of toxic, because that comparison, well, your career is not as good as mine because you had a different experience or you did something differently. It doesn't look exactly like this. And so with that, it's very easy to pick apart things and pull things out and say, hey, you're not doing as good as I did, or, you should be this in order to be great or be there. And I mean, I have seen that a lot. And, I do see that in the community. So I think yourself highlighting people in the military community, or who have been a part of the military community before, highlighting just, everybody gives some light on everybody's accomplishments and what they're doing and what they have done before. And like you said, it may be different than what other people have done, but that doesn't mean that it's not service. That doesn't mean that it doesn't hold value or is a credit to that person. We all should be proud of what we do, especially in the military. We serve the greatest country in the world, and that service is important, and what you do for your country is important. So overall, like, I think, the service should be highlighted.
Absolutely. And that there is like an inverse relationship with imposter syndrome, I think, and actually deserving to be there. Because if you don't deserve to be there, you don't feel imposter syndrome. But if you do feel it, because you're starting to rise to a level where you're like, I don't belong with these people. These are people I used to look up to. And now I've risen to this level, and you feel like you don't belong. You're not part of the club. And it's always going to be there. It's one of those things that just never goes away. The more accomplished and badass somebody looks on paper and in their story, I guarantee you they feel it all the time, and it's something we can't get over.
No, and also, like, imposter syndrome, the way you handle that too, right? Like, you can succumb to it and say, "Oh, I don't deserve to be here," and then there's a decrease in performance, a decrease in motivation to do things. Or you can take a look at that and be like, "Well, I can't help but feel this way." And so because I do, I recognize that and I understand that I do deserve to be here. I have worked hard. I've done everything else everybody else has done to be here. And the best thing for me to do to combat that imposter syndrome and to improve myself is just kind of keep the mind of a student and constantly learn, constantly make sure that, you're doing your best to perform the job that you're doing. Because imposter syndrome is something that it can really, really destroy a person. Like I said, if you succumb to it, and it will rob you of your motivation, rob you of the passion that you have for that particular job if you're not careful.
I do have a varying interpretation, or my view on comparison as the thief of joy. I think that's like bullshit, and people lean
Mhm.
on that as an excuse because they're envious or they're letting other people's accomplishments eat away at them. If there weren't other people, very successful people that I compared myself to and I wanted to be like them, I would have never gotten to the levels that I did
I think
because
that's a
I was
mindset thing,
chasing.
though. Yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
mindset thing.
It's all a mindset. And that's my
Yeah.
view on that is, and that's one thing that drives me. Everybody has to find their own different way to get themselves out of bed. Like for selection, I I didn't need anybody telling me what to do. I was telling myself enough horrible shit about like,
Mhm.
you better pass this, it's in
You better
the
do this or
conversation. You better do this. I don't want to go back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Do you want to go back to Fort Sill, Oklahoma? No. So you better get out there and wade through this creek and shit like that and do the
Yeah.
stuff you don't want to. Um, you know, maybe I shouldn't have watched M. Night Shyamalan's The Village before I got to selection, and then I had to go out in the dark, and I was freaked out the entire time. But maybe it distracted me from the weird people that were out there crawling around in the woods trying to steal weapons and brass and shit like that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Everybody's got a technique.
Yeah, I think that's true though too, because everybody's experience is different when they go through selection. You know, I so mindset is pretty important, right? I mean, I think for everything. If you're going to a school or if you're going to do a selection process, I mean, you've got to have your own goals. One of my cadre when I was a SWIC told me that I have to have a purpose. I have to have my purpose when I go there. What am I doing? What is my reason for being here? Do I want to go through just because I want to be, a Green Beret, or do I want to go through because I want to learn XYZ? And I think that mindset is going to revolve around what your actual reason for going is, the actual purpose that you think you're going to serve if you accomplish that type of thing. So everybody's going to have their different ways of coping with a selection process, coping with the challenge, coping with whatever they're being asked to do. And I've met a lot of people to where their mindset was not exactly mine, but it worked for them. Like that's what they relied on to get them through this. So, that's why when going through the schools and the selections, talking with people and, making friends, making connections really opened me up to the different ways that people think about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and, how they're going to do that in the future.
You'd be surprised how many people don't know that reason though while they're in selection or in the course. But
Mhm.
one of my guests, 18 Good Guy, he summed it up pretty well. I think that applies to a lot of the people that go through any of these things. They already think they're that person at the finish line, and they're just doing this to prove that they who they think they are to themselves.
I think that is personally, I think that that's a false type of motivation because me going through that, I knew that I was not that person. I wanted to be that. I wanted to be, you know, selected or I wanted to be successful in that thing, and I knew I wasn't there, but I knew that I had the work ethic to get there, and that was what was important to me. I may not be here yet, or I may not be that person, but man, I am here because I know that I'm a hard worker and I can get there. And so that particular mindset of going in as I'm already this person, I'm just out to prove it to everybody else. Yeah.
No,
I
to
or
themselves
to
that they're that
themselves,
person.
maybe. Like, if you're proving it to yourself and you need that, totally fine, great. However, I was like, I know I'm not this person, or I am not this yet, but by God, I have the ambition, I have the strength, the physical, mental ability to do this. And if it doesn't work out, man, I'll be stronger for it. And I'll either, go and do something that I'm meant to do and learn from this, or I won't, or I'll die. Uh it's just one of those things that if you to me it's better if you know more about yourself, and you know what you're good at, what you can do, and that you can push through anything before you go through something like that. I have never gone into anything that I've done, I'd say military or civilian, like prior to joining the military, thinking that I was already there, or I knew that I had worked to get to where I was, and I could work to get through whatever I was doing at the time, because to me, the work ethic, I can do anything if I have the work ethic to do it, and I do. And that was instilled in me at a young age too.
You don't think you doubted yourself? Because if you wanted to grow through it, but you didn't think that you could get through it, then you doubted a little bit of you doubted that you were that could were what you could be what you could be. So you wanted to work into it. Do you think you had a doubt when you started on this whole journey of how high you could go?
I knew that it was definitely going to be an uphill battle. It was going to be challenges that I knew I could rise up to. And if it didn't work out, I was determined to not let that create doubt in myself for other things. Too many times I've seen people go and do something or attempt to do something and it hasn't worked out for them. And when they move on to the next thing, they just die. They lose the motivation, they lose the ambition to do anything else. And when I my early the earlier years of my career in the military, like I knew this is going to be probably pretty difficult, but I'm able-bodied, I'm able-minded, I have a solid foundation. I can handle this. I can do anything and I can attempt this. And I won't let the doubt or I won't let a failure destroy me. Because then at that time, if that happens and I'm losing, everything I've worked for, I'm disappointing myself. And so I just kind of created a wall, I think, in my mind to prevent that from happening because I've definitely gone through, my fair share of failures. And I just didn't want it to affect me negatively to where I couldn't do anything else. And so I've really tried to keep the doubt at a minimum. Um, and that's just what worked for me, up until this point for sure.
You're well spoken on that. It seems like you think about that a lot.
I have. I definitely have. And a lot of time in the woods doing land nav, thinking about, is this, going to work out for me or is this not? Yeah. And again, I've really for me, and it's not, it doesn't work for everybody. Some people need different motivations, but for me personally, it has never been a good idea for me to let doubt creep into my mind or at least let it stay there for a long period of time. I've always tried to go into things with ambition, with passion. I know I'm strong. I know I'm mentally strong and I can be and I can do something. And if it doesn't work out, if something didn't work out, that poses a challenge of how do I move on? How do I move to the next thing and continue to be successful and do things that I want to do when something doesn't go my way? The the victimhood mentality is something that is so easy, so easy to move into when things don't go exactly how you want them to. And I have seen that, and I think that we have seen that in not only military culture but in society as well. Like I think today's culture, that victimhood mentality is very, very common, and that's something that I think begins once you start that big time self-doubt. And so that is something I have guarded against for a long time and continue to do so because that is dangerous. That absolutely dangerous.
How does that confidence that you have, how do other people feel about that?
I think that sometimes it's probably intimidating, I'm definitely not the most perfect person ever. However, I do try to maintain that confidence when I do things. And it doesn't mean that I don't falter every now and then and I think, "Oh my gosh, I'm struggling with this. How do I move forward? How do I move on? How do I, fix this these emotions or feelings that I'm having and continue to push on and move forward?" But I think the confidence does come across sometimes as overbearing or maybe overstepping. But really, I just don't care. I do not care what other people think about, you know, the confidence level. And if it scares them or if they don't like it, I don't care. Like I still have to live my life and do my job, whatever that is, and continue on. And that's how I am. And I have no room for other people's opinions on how I choose to move through things or, rise to my challenges.
It seems like also with your fitness that
Mhm.
you don't leave the door open for criticism in that area. Why is that such a big focus for you?
Well, first of all, fitness has always been a hobby of mine. I've been doing, physical fitness for a really long time. I started at a young age, like I said. Um, my my parents laid a really solid foundation for me as a child, and I would work with my dad. We had some land in Mississippi where I'm from, and we baled hay every summer, so that was my workout. I grew up playing sports, and And so fitness has always been a huge part of my life, my biggest hobby. And so being physically able to perform to a standard to me is a privilege. Um, I'm blessed with height and weight. Like I'm 5'8", 175, and I have been physically able to do everything that I have been asked to do in the military, and a lot of that is just through discipline that I've already built into myself. Again, if you love something, like I said, it's a hobby. I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to want to do it as best I can. Um, and so, being in the military for 7 years now, the standards are there for a reason. It's so that I am physically able to do my job. As an 11 Bravo, we have the fitness tests, we have those standards laid out for us. And so it has been incredibly important to meet those standards or exceed those standards every time in order for me to do my job. And, the day I can't do that, is the day I can't do my job. However long I'm in the military, I will always, try to do or try to be as fit as I possibly can for that job. The way I look, the way I perform physically is a representation of myself, my discipline, the uniform that I wear. And so keeping up a level of fitness where I can keep up with everybody, or for the most part. Now, there are definitely people out there stronger than me, but maintaining a level of fitness is one of the top priorities because, I mean, that's a huge part of the job. It's a huge part of myself. I'd be doing my country, myself, my peers, my subordinates a disservice if I wasn't that way. So it's a pretty easy to keep that up. Fitness is something that I most definitely make sure that I can perform and that I can do as best I can because if you want to, get on to me about something, it won't be that because I will make sure that I maintain that.
Yeah, it doesn't leave um, open to interpretation, right? You don't give people
Yeah.
ammunition. And
Absolutely, absolutely not. That's one of the first things that people will attack me for, or people do attack others in the military, and especially as a female, with there's a lot of there's biological difference between males and females,
really,
and I mean, yeah, it's a surprise to everybody, right? It's a surprise. Yeah, there's differences, yeah, and there's definitely things that would be maybe more difficult for me to do. But in order to perform my job, I can do everything that is needed. Um, and, it is possible that, like I said, the standards are there. And surprise, we can meet the standard or we can exceed the standard. We can.
do you give any thought down the road to that toll it's going to take on your body?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially now. I mean, I do feel the effects of everything that I have done on my body for sure, and that's just a part of getting older. It's a part of, the body will only be able to do so much. But I think it's also important to realize and be in tune with your body and understand what you're doing, and how you feel. Like I said, there will be a time when I probably won't be able to do everything that I have done before in my early to mid 20s. I'm now 31, so I mean, there will be a time where my body probably won't be able to do everything that I want it to do. Um, and everything that I do now will definitely take a toll on me. My knees crack like Rice Krispie treats. I mean, it's just there are signs of wear and tear, but I try to keep my body healthy. I keep a healthy diet. I do my best to maintain a good exercise schedule, recovery as well. So just making sure that I pay attention to those details. That's what's gonna help me with some longevity.
Once I stopped doing CrossFit, I stopped hurting. So
CrossFit does cause me to hurt, but CrossFit's like the only thing that I do now. CrossFit's been a huge part of my life for several years actually. Um, I kind of used CrossFit in train up for like SFAS and
me
Ranger
too.
School. But then after Ranger School, after my little recovery period, which was like a day, I went to 100%, just doing CrossFit, and That's pretty much all I do now too. Which I mean, to me, it translates really well to what I've been asked to do in the military. So far, it's worked out pretty well for me.
I Here's mine on it. Do I like CrossFit? No. Do I do CrossFit? Yes. I train strength and cardio on my own and separate, but I got different goals. But I can go mess up a wad
I
every
love
once
a
in a
WOD.
while.
Yeah,
You know,
the I like the CrossFit, the workouts. Now I don't get into like the drama or the ins and outs of like CrossFit Incorporated, and I don't keep up with athletes and anything like that. I'm just there like for the workouts. And I've done a couple of competitions in the past couple of years too. Um, but the workouts, the WODs, the Metcons, I love. I like that they add most of the endurance with the strength. But then as a supplemental workout, I do just kind of do a just normal bro lift, weightlifting type of workout as well. I mean, I love dumbbells, so I'll get in there and fuck up some weight myself. But CrossFit is mostly the choice of workout, pretty much. It does hurt
it do-
though.
it
It does hurt.
it 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 hurt me, and then when I stopped and went to lifting at full range of motion, heavy, and that's it. Contrary to everything you hear on every reel or whatever chiropractor, they're all wrong. They're all wrong because they don't know. They don't actually
Yeah.
train any of this. When they do go learn it, then they figure out, okay, maybe this is the way. But full range of motion, heavy and controlled is this is the way, I
Oh,
think.
after Ranger School, it was so disappointing and depressing because I couldn't pick up like a barbell. The barbell felt heavy, and it's 35 pounds, and it was a long road of working back up to where I was when I went to Ranger School. It was and CrossFit. I wish I had kind of like eased myself into it a little bit more. But like I said, a day or two after I got back to my unit from Ranger School, I immediately started the workouts, and I couldn't do anything. So it was a learning curve.
It affects everybody
It
differently.
does.
And I mean, physiological different, going to ranger school and all this other things. Like, as you said, there's a difference between men and women. And I don't dig too much into the studies, and I try to limit myself to other people's content and things like that. But if you're performing at the same level as your peers, it's going to have more an effect on you, muscular skeletal wise,
Uh-huh.
than the just because of from a bone density thing. Do you
Yeah.
think about that when you're like, I'm only 12, 13 years from retirement, and I don't, this isn't correct, but the
The
data is many women, because I sat next to a female when I medically retired, and she'd been in the Army 3 months and shattered both her hips from basic training. Uh, and I was like, how? And she's like, just from rucking. I was like, Jesus, what the fuck? Because I didn't even, basic wasn't anything. So I can't imagine it was much harder than what I went through. And just, she's getting retired from that. Do you think about that side of the things? Am I possibly hurting myself further than, because now you can keep up with it when you're young.
yeah.
And if the longer you keep up with it, you'll feel better as well. But how it is, because I assume right there with all of your peers,
Yeah.
physically wise.
I do think about it sometimes. I think, and again, like so I don't know all the stats or the studies, and if I'm right, which I asked about it when I got out of Ranger School, there's not a whole lot of studies um, for the females and the effects of it. I think we're starting to do a little bit more now because we've got more females who are joining the military, doing these combat positions, going to schools and selections, which is amazing. Um, I thought about it the most when I first joined. Um, but for me, I didn't worry about it very much. I knew that I was strong. I knew that I kind of was like, okay, well, I'm strong. I have an athletic build. I know that I can carry weight. I definitely trained for basic. I trained really hard for infantry basic because I had huge expectations of what the workload was going to be like. And I'll be honest with you, I probably overtrained a little bit because when I got there, I realized like, okay, well, not everybody is joining at a little bit of an older age like myself. Not everybody is athletic or grew up in the outdoors or has had, a same upbringing as I have. And so they're having to work, play at the lowest common denominator, and work up from there. So I think I've seen a lot of injuries. I've seen females specifically with those injuries, like the hip injuries, the bones, the ankles, the knees. And I didn't really think about it after basic very much because I had a lot of confidence in my abilities, my body. Again, I'm really blessed with an athletic build. Already had some discipline built up from, being in school and college, and bringing that into my military. I already had a really good physical foundation. As the years have gone by, I definitely have felt that wear and tear for sure. But I've tried to do my best to maintain, but to be more aware of what I'm doing and make sure that I implement those recovery things. And I try to keep myself from being susceptible to injury, especially with rucking with heavy weight, and which I, have done a lot of. And I've just been really fortunate that I haven't experienced any injuries that have been so debilitating yet. And I hope that I don't. But it is a lot of wear and tear on the body, but it is most definitely something that is doable. And I've told everybody this because this is something I truly believe, especially as like a female, if you're doing something, and this applies to males too, but with the biological differences, with the way that we are built, it might take a little bit more effort to get to where you want to be. It might take a couple more workouts. It might take a little bit more creatine in your daily intake, or it might take some more, a better nutritional plan that you have. It might take some more work. You might have to do a couple more push-ups at the end of the day or something. But whatever it is, if it takes a little bit more effort, then that's okay, right? It's going to take that to get to where you are, because you might have to make up a little bit difference. And if you can do that, then you'll be fine. Um, I When I went to pre-ranger for the first time, I went 3 times, but I went for the first time, and, at the PT test, they kicked me back for push-ups. They said my push-ups didn't look very good, and I was like, "Okay, well, no big deal. I'm not gonna die. I'm just gonna go back, do a couple more. I've already shaved my head, so, like, I can't back out now. So, I'm gonna go do some more push-ups and, be bald for a month longer, and I'll go back," and it takes a little bit more effort sometimes, and so it might take a little bit more power from you in order to accomplish something, so you can try to combat like any injuries or whatnot. But I mean, to answer your question, that was kind of a long way around. I do think about it, and wear and tear does happen. But I think my answer has always been to just do what I can to make sure that I can maintain what I need in order to perform. And so far, that has gotten me a very long way.
There's no substitute for muscle.
There's
Um,
really not. No, there's really not. And a lot of this is just pure muscle. Like you can do things and you can put on muscle. And again, I'm incredibly blessed with muscle build, and discipline enough to go to the gym or to do a workout when I don't feel like doing it. And I think that all of that little bit of discipline has added up incredibly for me over the past couple of years. But that is not something that is, individual, or, something that belongs to me. Everybody can build up that discipline, and everybody can do that. That is the secret. That is the ticket.
you've been working towards this point your whole life. How do you feel about junior soldiers kind of come on the path when you see them and you go, that's going to hurt, you know, especially on the female side of like, man, if they carry the same weight, they're going to get hurt. How do you feel seeing that?
You know, I hope that they understand, what they signed up for. And I want them to understand that this is the expectation, this is the standard, this is what you're required to do. You need to meet that. You must meet that. And if you don't, then you don't. There's obviously something else for you to do. Um the Nothing is really given to you, like I hope that they have the work ethic, and I hope that they have the mentorship that they need in order to be successful, which they deserve. I hope that they are putting in putting their being, their heart into what they're doing. um and to me, I know not everybody's going to have like the same mindset, but I hope that it's strong enough for them to understand that, these small habits and these things that they do, the discipline that they're hopefully building is going to do nothing but be a positive influence on others. And also, it will never fail them.
Absolutely. And that's not exclusive to females. Like there's
No.
dudes too. Like, hey man, I don't know if you're going to have to put on some size here. But
Yeah.
I went through the course with some dudes that were 150 pounds carrying a 150-pound ruck. And it's all up here. They're just,
A lot of it is that mental game, which is just as important as the physical. Yeah, there's males who, come and fail the standard every day. There's females who come and pass the standard every day. Um, you can be 5'8" female like myself or 5'5" female carrying the same weight. And then though my stride might be a little bit longer, you're still carrying the weight and we're still expected to do so. And you can, there's no reason really why you can't. And this is not the most popular opinion ever. But to me, it has always kind of been equal opportunity, but it's not always equal effort. I have found it to be a fact that sometimes it takes a little bit more effort to accomplish something because of, you may lack in some arm strength or back strength or whatever. Um, Again, not the most popular opinion, but the truth from what I've seen. And and the same goes for males too. Like the, you just really can't go wrong with the good work ethic, and if you're putting in the time and the effort to accomplish something. That is definitely not as exclusive.
no, no. It's, all right. Yeah. Person dependent. But again, if you want it, you're going to figure out how to do it. I say that a lot. I saw that a lot in the Q course. And for those kids at home, this is not the ideal body size to be carrying around in the woods. Light, fast, mobile. That's the way to go about it. You can
Yeah.
put on all that weight later. I like to point that out because people get the misconception of being big and strong. No, that's a lot of extra weight to carry around. That's for
Yeah,
later, kids.
you're
You
right.
got like these schools are demanding, and you don't want to be carrying around extra weight. I do like to point that out every once in a while. I like that you're taking creatine. All women should take creatine. Also,
Yes.
it does more for women than it does for men, just because of the diet and physiological
Yeah.
things. But
Big
yeah,
fan of creatine. Every day. Every day.
absolutely. Shameless plug, my buddy Travis owns Alpha Elite Performance. Use
Yeah, yeah.
LKO 15 at checkout to save 15% on.
I've used some of his products before. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's got some great stuff. I know him.
He's great. I see him and I'm always like, I need to do more. I need to do more. I don't know if I can fit any more in my schedule on the budget I'm on, but I always in my head I see him doing stuff and I'm like, I gotta cram more in. But that's all right. He's
Yeah,
a
he's
great guy,
great.
leading from the front. He's starting a new thing with stem cells. I'm very excited to see what he's got going
Maybe
on
that's
there.
what I need. Oh, for my knee.
You got to finish destroying your knee first. You've got 12 years and change left to
It's
completely destroy your body.
it's hanging in there. I don't know what's destroying my body first. Like what's doing it more, like just military things or just me going to CrossFit every day and
It's the
doing these
CrossFit.
workouts.
It's probably the
Probably
CrossFit.
it's a CrossFit. It's probably the
The
CrossFit.
people that
I
are CrossFit purists that listen to this, if we're going to disagree, but it's probably the CrossFit that's
I
hurting
I
you.
do know that I'm now at the point where I will wear a knee sleeve. I don't care if it cracks once. I'm like, I'm putting the knee sleeve on and I'm doing the whole workout with it. I do not care.
I wrap my knees. I mean, I only wrap them over 400 pounds, but I wrap them when I get to a certain point because I was like, there's no room for error when you get to a certain point. And like, why do I care what that person you lift? I apply the chili pair. You cook chili with beans how you like it. I'll cook chili how I like it, and that person is not going to affect how I like my chili, and that's
We're
what I
on the
apply
same
to the
page
gym.
with that. 100% agree. They do it this way, and I'm gonna do it my way, and it works for me. So why would I change it? You know, why?
I'm not getting on the stage and competing against John Hack. It's not going to happen. Like,
I'm not gonna make
everybody
it
will
to
be
the
okay.
CrossFit Games, and I accept that fully.
Oh, you can get a ticket, $25. They'll let you in. All right. So, the initial, all of that, what we think of things, but what started you on this path? Because you said you had a great base from college, but kind of that goes into, did you always have this in your mind when you're kind of a kid running around baling hay out in the fields there?
Not at
Or,
all.
okay.
Nope. Not once did I ever see myself joining the military and doing what I'm doing today. If you had told me, back then that I would be where I'm at today, I would probably call you a liar, to be honest with you. I
Isn't
grew
that
up in
weird
a
to think
small.
about? Isn't that weird to think about?
It
You
is
go,
really
there's
weird to
no
think
way
about,
back then.
because yeah, because as kids, you think you're gonna be this or wanna be that. I think at one point I told my mom I wanted to be like a circus ballerina.
There's still time. There's still time.
There's still time. There's no grace in my movements. There's no ballet skill, but there's still time. Um, but yeah, at one point I wanted to go into politics. At one point I wanted to be a ballerina. And so not once did I think I'd be in the military ever. And that actually did not ever enter my brain at all until my senior year of college. And it's kind of funny how it did. So I went to Mississippi State University, which was in Starkville, Mississippi, which is where I grew up, born and
When did
raised.
you graduate?
I graduated in 2017. Took an
Okay.
extra year.
I was there in 19. I did a TED talk there in 19.
Really?
Yeah, I did a TEDx talk on TBIs and recovery. And that's what started. That was the first thing that started everything was
It
I
was
got
at
up.
Mississippi State?
It was at Mississippi State.
That's
My
cool.
buddy, shout out to Aaron Blaine. We're going to record again next week. Great dude. Anyway, I'm sitting
That's
around the fire
amazing.
with him, and I threw this comment out there. I said, in my life, I want to do a TED talk or something. And I had a 3-line outline. And he took that in his mind. He called me 4 weeks later. He said, I just had to drop out of my TEDx talk and they want another Green Beret to take the spot. And I went, oh, when is it? And he goes, it's in 3 weeks. I was like 3 weeks and 6 days or 3 weeks from today? And he's like 3 weeks. So I wrote, memorized, drove to Mississippi State and performed it all in like 19 days. And
Oh,
that's what started all this. So
that's so cool because, like I said, that's my old stomping grounds. Starkville, Mississippi, born and raised is where I grew up. I went to Starkville Academy, Mississippi State University after that. So that's where I'm from. So very, very familiar.
isn't
That's pretty
Mississippi
cool.
51st in education though, as a state, like somehow
I really
51st out
don't
of 50
know.
states?
Mississippi State is
No,
a
the state itself.
Oh, the state itself. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know where it falls. Probably not in the highest. But I um I only went to Starkville Academy for like my high school years. So like ninth through the 12th grade, I was at Starkville Academy. The bulk of my childhood, I was actually homeschooled. My mom was an educator, a teacher before she got married, and then she had all of us. I have a big family. I have 5 other siblings. I'm the second oldest, and so she chose to homeschool us up to that point. So we had like an amazing base education wise, and then at certain ages as we got older we would go to either the private school or the public school and we would continue our education there. But so yeah, Mississippi State, my college, I mean, I worked 3 jobs when I was in college, which is kind of I think where some of the discipline came from because I was I was paying for my classes, paying rent. I moved in with my sister in an apartment, so I worked 3 jobs during college, and one of those was a bartender and a waitress, and so I would go and stack my classes in the morning. I'd go work in the afternoons, work at night, do my homework at night, work out, and then I'd sleep for about 2.5, 3 hours, and I'd wake up and do it again. Um,
Perfect preparation for
I
military.
didn't know it at the time, but it really did prepare me in a way for joining the military and the stressors that the military, as far as like sleep and workload, give you. Because by that point, I had already had lots of experience with working and trying to be 100% when you're tired, juggling multiple things at once, scheduling back to back to back to back things, and having to perform all of this stuff during the day and then, at nighttime. So I mean, like I said, it was probably a really good preparation for the military because I already had civilian experience, um, with a very busy schedule and relying on myself for a lot of things. But
What were you studying?
I started out in kinesiology, and then I did not like that, or I decided that that wasn't for me. My goal was to do like personal training, but then I realized I didn't have to have a degree to do that, and I didn't want to do like physical therapy. So I switched, and I actually got my bachelor of science in clinical psychology. So used that a lot in the military, by the way. It was really helpful.
Not the
Um,
degree itself, because you enlisted.
I did enlist. So at the time, actually, let me back up and tell you kind of how I got to join the military,
Mm.
because I had like I said, no aspirations to be military anything, anything. But when I was in college, toward my last couple of years in college, um, I started thinking, well, I'm not sure what my next step is. Even with my degree, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm very interested and I love psychology, but I don't want to be a therapist. I don't particularly want to sit and listen. I want to study. And so even though I was going to class and I was applying myself to the best I could, I was tired a lot. Honestly, I probably should have taken like a year break or something and worked because I was burning the candle at both ends. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew that I was working really hard. Um I was still working out, maintaining really good fitness, and I was trying to build something. I just didn't know what the purpose for myself was yet. And so I was like, okay, I'm killing myself trying to do all this and trying to, take classes and all this. And I was like, I know I'm doing it for something. I just don't know what it is yet. And it'll come to me. I am a religious, I relied on my my relationship with God, and I would pray and be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I need to have that purpose, but I know it will come. And during that time, one of my jobs was a personal trainer at a local gym. And I got hired by a client. He was an older gentleman. He was a former Green Beret. And he was wanting to get back into shape. He still did something with the National Guard. I wasn't exactly sure what it was because, again, I didn't know anything about the National Guard or active duty. And he wanted to get back into shape. And I honestly worked out pretty much the same as I do today, just with as much intensity. I'd come up with wild stuff to do. And so during our training sessions, when he would come in for his, hour long workout or whatever that I had designed, and he would tell me about the Green Berets and what they did. And then one day he said, the Green Beret has this program called the 18 X-ray program. And I think you would be like a really good candidate for it. And I was like, what is that? And I did a little bit of research and I was like, I'm gonna go do that. That's what I'm going to do. And completely off topic. I was like, well, I have to join the military first, and there's steps and a process to get there that I don't know what that is, but I'm going to find out. And I had heard just from other people that I knew that might have been in the military that recruiters may not always tell me the truth, or they would try to
Oh,
push me into something, a job or an MOS that I didn't like, and then I would be stuck. And I was terrified of that happening. So I just did my own research. There was a small camp that was about an hour away in Grenada, Mississippi, called Camp McCain. And there were some guys from 20th Group that were there, and I just drove down there and in my little almost broken down Honda Accord. And I just pulled up and I knocked on the first door and I was like, I need somebody to tell me about this. And I held up a folder of like 18 X-ray information that I had. And the guy's like, I don't remember his name, but he's like, everybody here that you probably should talk to is actually here. So I went and talked with a couple of these guys, and they were like, I mean, you could probably do it. We just don't know how that's going to work because this was like 2017, early
Yeah.
17,
I was
and
still in
it was
group and that
still,
wasn't a
I think,
thing.
yep, females in the combat roles was still extremely new. And I don't think one had made it through SFAS yet at the time, or there had only been one that had tried. I don't really remember. And that also didn't matter to me. I was like, okay, well, if there's an avenue that I can take to get there, then I'll do that. I don't care who's been on that path before or who hasn't. I it didn't matter to me. I didn't have, I didn't look for females in the military first. I just looked at what do I think I can do? That. I can do that
You
physically,
should,
mentally.
I said, you think you can do that, or you think you're that. I think I can do that, And that's interesting that you snapped right to, I want to do that. That's
Yeah.
that thing. Cause it's an 18 X-ray suck. I mean, being an X-ray sucks. Some of my friends that went through, they just had such a tough time to get their beret, and I did not. So it's a
Yeah.
tough road.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about the military, I think, too, because you really don't exactly know. You can have plans, you know? You can have
No,
plans to do something.
useless. Use.
Yeah, you can have goals, you can have things that you wanna do, and I'm a planner, so when I, started, focusing in on this particular path, I got out this whiteboard. I'm a big whiteboard person, especially when I was in college. I just would
You
That's
sure
how
you
I
didn't
would
want to be an
study.
officer with the whiteboard
Well,
skills?
looking back at it now, I keep thinking, I was like, maybe I should have done the officer route. But I to me, on the enlisted, as we moved through it, and I decided that this was something I was gonna do. We decided that enlisted was probably the better way to do it. It would give me the most a chance or opportunity to do this, and I could operate on somewhat of my own timeline. I could control it a little bit better. And again, this is the very beginning of me looking into the military, and originally I wanted to just do the guard. So, I spoke with people about it. I went and met with a recruiter on campus, and he was amazing. He was very, very helpful. And because I was scared of a recruiter maybe pointing me in the wrong direction or telling me no, um, I went with my folder and I walked in and I was like, introduced myself, and I told him, I was like, I have one more class left in my senior year. And this is what I want to do. And I had my folder and I gave it to him, and he just looked at it and he's like, okay, we're going to try to make it happen. Um, and so we started that process, and I did try to do it with the guard, and it didn't work out for the guard. And the reason is because the state of Mississippi did not have any females in the infantry. Because although I was very qualified completely for the 18 X-ray contract, the National Guard would not give it to me. I'm still a little, I can't exactly remember what their reasoning was, but I was joining the guard, and they were like, well, we can't give you that. It's not available, but you can do this, and you could do that, or you could do this other, MOS. And I kind of looked at it as that, okay, they're going to push me into something I don't want to do, and I'm not going to get to selection. Again, I didn't know what the full process was. All I knew was that I
The
can,
the
I want this.
guards,
This is what I want.
SF guard and regular and active duty SF, not the same thing.
Yep.
Well,
Nope.
okay, you graduate on the same stage, but the path is not even remotely similar at all.
Yeah.
These cats have to go to the SFRE, and
Mhm.
then they're not even in the military, and then they come in, then they get sent to selection, then it's not even look the same. So I can imagine, yeah, the National Guard going, I don't know how, they're probably the ops sergeant went, I don't know how we're going to do this,
Mhm. I
Uh,
That's probably what it was too. And again, I didn't really ask for a lot of details. Just whenever a roadblock would come up, myself and the recruiter, his name was David, and we would be like, okay, here's the roadblock. How do we get past it? And so what we did, and the guard was a no go. It wasn't going to work. And I was like, okay, then we're going to do active duty. That's that's what I'm going to do. And so we went to the active duty office, and the active duty was like, okay, yeah, we can do this. However, here's kind of what we need, how we need to make this happen. At the time, I don't think the state of Mississippi did not have females in the infantry. Most definitely, 18 X-rays, none of that. So what we did was I joined with an 11 Bravo option 4 contract. I believe it was option 4. And so in doing so, we were like, okay, if selection doesn't work, because in basic, I can volunteer for the 18 X-ray contract. I am qualified. I'll be able to do that there. If it doesn't work out, then I'll just revert back to being an infantryman. I'll probably get sent to the 82nd because they have females in combat in West is there. They've integrated already. And I will be just 2 miles down our tents from SWIC. I'll be very close. And if I want to return to SFAS, then it will be easier for me to be in proximity, and I'll still be at Bragg. So that's what we did. I joined. I did the early ship, and I shipped out the summer of 2018. Yeah, summer of 18. And the option 4 was Airborne. So I knew I needed Airborne. I needed to go ahead and get that done before I went to selection, because, that I think that was, you had to be Airborne qualified, I think, at the time. And so that's what I did. And I signed the 18 X-ray contract in basic. I volunteered a couple of weeks in, and then I went to Airborne after I graduated, and then I went straight up to Bragg. And that's really how I got there. And when I joined, I did not look at anything else. Nothing, actually. I didn't look at anything else other than that one thing. And I thought, if this one thing does not work out for me, then that means that I will just have to find another purpose or a different avenue. The military does offer a lot of things, and there will be something there for me. I'm just taking this avenue because this is where I feel that I'm being led to, and I can do this mentally, physically. I can do this. So that's how I got in.
What was basic training like? Showing up to Fort Benning, and how integrated was it at that point, and your assessment of how things flowed?
It it was interesting. So me knowing nothing, I showed up to 30th AG, and I was like, this is not it. That this cannot be it. This is awful. It was a week. I think I was there for like a week and a half, which is really, which was really great, because I think people had been there for much longer than I was, and I didn't understand everything. The integration, there were several females that I was in basic with. I don't remember all their names. I did make friends with a few of them. Some of those friendships can lasted a little bit longer than others. But it was a small group, and we were, if I remember right, we were the last 14-week cycle, because then they switched to a 22-week cycle, a 22-week long basic training. And so overall, like, I didn't find basic training difficult. The most difficult thing about basic training was just trying to be around different groups of people that were so varied. I joined at an older age. So I was 24. I turned 25 in basic. And so, yeah, I was a little older than everybody. I had already had some life experience. This was not my first time away from my family. And that really was such a huge benefit for me. I mean, I don't think everybody should join later or earlier. You should join when you're ready. But I think joining a little bit older was what helped me out a lot, because, again, I had some life experience. I had a really good head on my shoulders. I had an opportunity to be on my own and to work and to study, and to implement some of the values and the foundation, like I said, that my family had given me. And so that helped me out a lot. And so the biggest challenge was trying to understand and work with such a variety of people. I say kids now because I'm older, but at the time, I think that was probably the most challenging thing. Um, I overtrained for basic, 100% overtrained for it. I, again, thought it was everybody was going to be a D1 athlete, and we were not. And that's okay. That's what basic is for. But physically, there was not a one thing that I was like, oh, this is hard, or I'm going to be, bad at this. I wasn't particularly a fast runner, but I learned to be faster in basic. But as far as like carrying load, such as it was in basic and rucks, I didn't have any problems at all.
You said you showed up to 30th AG and you're like, what is this? This is terrible. What does that mean?
Um, it was probably more so just it felt somewhat foreign because you go everybody goes, you show up masses of people who are joining and waiting to get into basic or to go and start that training, and everybody gets their haircuts, we get the shots, there was a lot of like sitting or standing around, and I was like, I hope that what I'm doing is not like this forever. It was just some acclimating to it because I felt like it was like a stalling, And of course it serves a purpose, right? You get your uniforms, you go through. I kind of felt like I was being treated like a child in a way. But again, like I said, there's reason for it and I get it. I didn't think that the system was that great. But again, that was me coming into military from a different world and thinking, oh, you have expectations and you have, ways that you think that it's going to be like, and it wasn't like that. So that first week, I made a lot of friends during that first week because we're all just sitting there, we're going through this together. You're going to talk to each other. So I made some friends, and those friends ended up going through basic with me, and I met up with some 18 X-rays, and was able to ask them my questions, and learn about their journeys to get to there, and I've kept some of those friendships, and those people are still my friends today, and I've seen them in my in the past couple years as we've gone our separate ways and done things. But yeah, 30th was it just is a time period where I was like, I don't think this is basic, but this is something. It's just the prerequisite to get there.
I know what you mean. And that
Yeah.
continued in basic with it seemed like people that volunteered to be there not too long ago didn't want to be there
Yeah.
at all. And they were it was
Yeah.
like they had been in a job for a lot of years and they just didn't, they're like, this is what I got to do. Like, man, we just started and you don't want to be here. That's kind of the attitude I saw
Yeah,
right away.
that you're right. That is something that I saw. And all I think the most of that is though is that they get there, or they have these ideas of what they're going to be, what they're going to do, and they get there and everybody's in the same spot and you have time to think about your decisions. And I think that time allows a lot of thoughts to go through some people's heads. I'm like, oh my gosh, I fucked up. Like, I don't want to be here. This is not what I want to do. I'm having second thoughts, getting cold feet, whatever you want to call it. And that's where that's going to happen. And then that again, that can set them off on a different course. But yeah, that you have I did see a lot of negative attitudes and um, regrets maybe on joining and being away from their families. But then again, I saw a lot of others that were just going through a adjustment process. I did this, I've signed up, this is the first step. And, obviously it got better, but it can be difficult to go straight into that from, signing a piece of paper and thinking I'm about to be a badass. You know what I mean?
Like some of that goes back to the recruiters as well. You don't know what they were told on their way in or what grandiose ideas they had of service and things like that. But yeah, I that continued on. I agree with you. Yeah, it was basic was not. It was disappointing, and so was AIT. And
It's like the
that
first mental challenge though, because it's like you may be disappointed several times in your life, but it's like I think the first almost mental hurdle maybe with joining the military. Like, okay, this isn't exactly what I thought, but how can I make this a good thing? How do I learn from this? Um, Honestly, I just used the time to kind of focus. Like, okay, I'm do eventually, I will do something else. This is I only do this for a certain amount of time. I graduate or I don't, and I was going to graduate, so I didn't look at it as something that would be anything close to a setback. It's just a step. It's just part of it.
How were you guys, or the females, treated at Infantry Basic? I know how it was for ours in 2011. There was a separate floor, and everything just kind of seemed normal.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it too. We had a separate floor. There was a separate bay for females, and we did everything that everybody else did. Again, joining, I never once thought about, oh, I'm a female in this world. How am I going to live? How do I adapt? I never once thought about that. I was just like, well, I'm here and I'm wanting to do this. How can I perform in order to do this? Because there are set things that I have to check off to get there. But I didn't notice or feel like I was treated really in any way different. I had some great drill sergeants, and I learned a lot. Never once did I feel as if I was, how do I put it, that I was at a disadvantage because I was a female. Um, I did know that there weren't a lot of us, but again, that was not something that I focused on. I never wanted to be like, oh, a female in the infantry. It's just more of like, I'm in the infantry and this is what I need to do. So for basic, we did everything that everybody else did. I did find that, some of the mentalities of the females that I was with was definitely different than mine. Even though we were in the same MOS, I didn't agree with how everybody acted, behaved, or the reasons for being there. But I didn't want to get wrapped up in that. I really tried to guard against anybody else's mentality that didn't somewhat match with mine, and because I didn't want to open myself up to that, and therefore me start to maybe adapt or adopt the better word, some of that same mentality, because it wouldn't work for me. I had a few friends. I had a really good friend in basic training. And so I stuck with her. We were like-minded, and although that friendship didn't pan out and we had some differences along the way in our career, I was grateful to have somebody there that was, around the same age as I was and had, some similar goals. But, it you there I think there were maybe 11 or 13 girls to start with, and I think we graduated something like maybe 8 or 7 or 8. I could be kinda wrong on those numbers, but, generally, that's kinda what I remember. But yeah, it was different. Definitely some different mentalities and attitudes, more, not my choice attitudes and personalities to be around, but because that's where I was at the time, I definitely tried to be as good an example as I could be at the time, because I had my reason, I had my purpose, I had my goals, and so that 100% kept me grounded, knowing that this I need to get through this to get to the other thing, and that was the best way to look at it.
All right, that's all the positives. We're going to graduate. We're going
Yeah,
to get our blue cord. What about the negatives? Like, we're grunts, we're infantry, we're better than we're this and all that. And like, being an infantryman kind of sucks. You're running around in the field, you're digging holes and sitting in fighting positions. It's dirty. It's all out there. What about that part of it? And like, it takes, I don't know, infantrymen it's a rough gig.
it is.
How did that
It
part
is.
sit on you?
You know, it it's definitely something, again, like I said, I can do it. Is it the most fun thing to do all the time? No. Is there like better ways to do things as an infantryman? Yes.
No.
Overall, well, they'll say no, um the dirty, the suck, there's a lot of bonding that you do with people through that. That's a way that people bond, and I think that's a strong thing that you do see in the infantry. Going through the suck doing these field exercises or, going through a school process, like that creates really good bonds. But it does take a toll mentally and physically, because then it becomes kind of um, like mundane. Like it's the same thing over and over and over. I'm going to dig the same hole. I'm going to do the same movements, or carry the same weight. And so like that, it does take a toll. And I think every infantryman probably at one point can say, I'm kind of tired of doing that, or I don't want to do that again, or this sucks, or hey, it sucks to go to JRTC, or it sucks to do, these particular field problems. And it's hard to do that. I think some people are really successful with doing that, and they really, really enjoy doing that over and over again until they become, so high up in rank that they may not have to do that particularly. But it does get kind of old, but you keep doing it. It's kind of a circle, you just that you get stuck in sometimes. And no, it's not the most fun all the time. And the dirtiness and the grunt work, it's it gets old. It does get old. And I think people are scared to mention that sometimes too. I think people are like, "Oh, I don't want to admit that this kind of sucks." Well, it does. It does. And it's
Everything
not
kind of
something you want
sucks.
to do
The
all the time.
military fucking sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to compare our bad days to everybody else's, because our bad days are like the Ritz Carlton compared to the JW Marriott. It's so I'm not going to say anything like that. But we have shitty days. We do shitty stuff. We carry around like this sucks, but
Yeah.
everything is relative to somebody else. All the jobs suck at some point. You're like, why do I
They
have to
do.
wear a
And
uniform?
exactly. And it's a different suck too. Like, I mean, some civilian jobs suck. There's always going to be something
All
about
civilian
what you're
jobs
doing.
suck. All of
Yeah.
them.
There's going to be something about everything that you try to do that's going to have it's going to be a point where you're like, "Oh, this sucks." You know. All right, I'm tired of being rained on and cold and, face down in the prone with my helmet, sliding forward and my nods, creating a strain in my neck or something. Like, there's always going to be something where it sucks, and that's just true. It's just a reality of it. And sometimes like you just don't want to find a positive in it, or it's hard to make that mentality, and all you're going to do is just you know what? I'm out here and I'm sucking, but I'm out here and this sucks, but I'm here. And it will end. It all ends eventually. I tell some students that I'm like, it does come to an end at some point.
Yeah. And then it'll all be a memory, and you'd be like, maybe that wasn't so bad. No, it fucking
Yeah.
sucked. Shut up. It
Like,
was
no,
it
yeah.
was that bad.
You
Shut up.
remember it right. It sucked. And it was awful.
Sucks.
But like, you create some bonds and friends with it. And then you have your good times that you remember, but then you're gonna have times where you're just like, oh, this was the worst night of my life and I hate it. And that's just a reality. That's just something that everybody's gonna have.
So that's all on the earth, on the ground, with your feet on the ground. Now you go to airborne school and you get introduced to that the Army kind of wants to kill you.
What an experience.
How do you feel about that? Like, hey man, or woman, whatever. Hey, go, and it may or may not open. Make sure you got 6 seconds before you have to pull your reserve.
Trust your equipment. Trust your equipment.
How is that? Because everybody's life up until that point, you're like, oh, I'm pretty grounded, unless you're avid skydiver and shit like that. But now the Army's like, I promise this shit'll work. Just, hey, jump out this door for me.
Man, let me just say, not a fan of heights. Never was. And airborne school was something I was like, I know I'm going to have to do it, but that's a future me problem. I'll cross that bridge when I get there. And when I got to that bridge, I looked at it and I was like, I don't, this is going to be difficult. Like, this is going to be tough. And I think that's the reaction for a lot of people when they go to airborne school. I really appreciate the history of airborne school. First and foremost, the history of the airborne is really cool. I had a lot of respect for it, even though I hadn't even got there yet. And so being there was cool. And also, like, that's your first taste of freedom outside of basic. It was really nice to be around a different group of people. But I was nervous about it. And it was, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. You know what I mean? It was not something I really was keen on doing, but I knew that I had to do it. Again, it's just another stepping stone that was going to, qualify me to do what I wanted to do. And it also sets me apart in the military. To be airborne was another goal, and so I was like, I will do it. I have to do it. I'm here. And so I think the swings probably were the worst part of it, honestly. And the harnesses that they put you in, you practice the PLFs, and that was such a adjustment, uh having to go and do all these drills and everything every day and try to figure out how this is going to all come together when you exit a plane. And that, the entire leading up to your actual first jump, you're like, okay, I have to put all of this together and I have to remember this. And on top of that, I'm getting sucked out of a plane, so I'm going to be midair and then have to do this once I get to the ground.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. Uh,
And if you don't jump out, hit jail.
exactly. You have to. You have to exit that door. You cannot refuse to jump. You can't. There's no second chance. There's no second guess, no second chance, nothing. You have to go. And just the first jump, I was so nervous. I'm sure I was pale as death, sitting next to everybody. We're all cramped in this bird, and it goes up, and we're making tracks, and I'm just holding on to my reserve for dear life, thinking I'm about to jump out of this plane. And then you do the first jump, and there's this, the rush of wind. You get sucked out. You make a couple of, you move around in the air a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's quiet. It's still, completely still. And at that moment, I was like, you know what? This isn't so bad. Kind of don't want to have to do it as much as I know I'm going to have to probably, but this isn't so bad. And then you just got to concentrate on not breaking a leg, on the ground, and then it's fine. But my dad came to see my very last jump, and that was a super special moment for me, and for him, because again, I had grandfathers who fought, or who were in the army or the navy in World War II or just after, but that was all the military familial history that I had. And so my dad has, throughout my career, he has followed and researched everything that I have done or attempted to do. And he has been so supportive. Even though I didn't tell my parents when I joined the military, I waited until like a month after I had actually joined. Then I told them what I was going to do. They've always been very supportive. And so my dad came to see my very last jump. And it was a really special moment for him because he was incredibly proud and I was super proud. And my parents had done so much for me throughout my life, and my dad had worked really hard and it gave me a good reputation and a good name to carry. And so having him there and knowing that he was coming to see my last jump kind of helped me throughout the course of Airborne, because I was like, I'm going to do this. I have to do this. I'm terrified. I'm scared to death and I don't really like it, but I'm again, I'm going to do it. And so everything leading up to that moment, it was just a part of the job. But going from basic to airborne is quite scary, I think, for a lot of people, because it's such a thing. Unless that's your hobby and you jump out of planes on your own time, it's something that you probably didn't think you'd ever be doing. And like I said before, definitely did not see myself doing that.
One new experience after the other. I equate an airborne unit or being airborne or the whole jump process to how guys treat golf. 17 bad holes in a row. Just terrible. But man, I chipped in on 18, and that's what it is. Once that chute opens to right before you break your hip hitting the ground, this is awesome. JMPI
Yeah.
sucks. Waking up at 03 sucks. Sitting there
Mhm.
rigged up for 9 hours, that fucking sucks. Sitting on the bird while you're just doing racetracks and you're getting sick, that fucking sucks. Jumping out the door because you got to hand off that static line and you got to look that dude in the eye and make sure this doesn't rip your fucking arm off until you turn and jump out and you hold those 6 seconds or whatever the fuck it is, 4-6 seconds. I don't know, T10, T12. And you're fucking 1, 2, I'm going to fucking die. And then it opens and you're like, oh, this was all worth it.
It's kind of nice.
It's like when you chip in on 18 and go, I'm back. I'm fucking back. That was all worth it. We're playing again tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's the same
The
thing. Everybody
there's
forgets that whole shit show
no.
that went on before it.
The airborne timeline is probably definitely the worst part about jumping. And then when you're in the bird, and for whatever reason, if you can't jump or you don't have a green light and you got a racetrack, that's probably not like one of my least favorite parts about it too. If that happens, um, if you're like me, being the first jumper is the best. I don't know if I think a lot of people like can disagree, but if I'm standing there in the door for at least a couple of minutes before I actually have to jump out of the door, and I can see the treetops, I can see where we're at. To me, that's way better. I have a bit more of a like grasp on what I'm about to do because I don't care. Maybe if you've jumped like 60 to 70 times, which I know people who have jumped so much, so many jumps. Every time I jump, and I have jumped quite a few times, I always get nervous. Everybody, you always experience some butterflies when you go up because, anything can happen. Um, and so I never get past that. But when the chute opens and you look at your canopy and you check for anything, and if you have any twists, you undo that, and you have that moment of stillness, you're just like, oh, this is nice. And then I hit the ground, and then
A
it's not so
sack of
nice.
shit every time.
Like
It's just
like a
like
bag of bricks just
yeah.
rolling. The wind always takes my chute, and I'm just trying to get it off being drug across the thing. But yeah, I
You said those
y-
swings, every time you do it, you're like, oh, no, wrong, wrong. And then you do it the
wrong.
exact same way the third time, and they go, yeah, that'll work. And I go, I don't think this is going to feel good when I hit the ground, And it didn't. I fucking smacked the
It's gonna
fuck out of
hurt.
my head the first time and the third time I hit the ground. But whatever, that's the gig,
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I
better
mean,
than being a
that's part
fucking
of it.
leg.
True. Agreed. 100% agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was the first, there was two great moments because I came from enlisted in regular army. When I came back, I was like Gandalf being reborn in Lord of the Rings, Two Towers. I came in. Did you get selected? Yep. And just this, that. And then when I went to Airborne and came back, and the staff sergeant, he teed me up. He goes, how your legs feel? He's like, I don't know how you guys walk on these fucking things. And he was the only other one that was airborne qualified, and those were pretty fun. And then I got to the course, and the course fucking sucks, but it was airborne is airborne, long
It
history,
is.
and you get to play on that history. And but everybody that came before us is way more badass than we'll ever be. Fucking,
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Way more badass than I'll ever be. Ever hope to be.
All right, we hit the ground for the fifth time. Get your airborne wings. Dad gets to see you jump. That's got to be fun. But now
Yeah.
there's a big unknown. I actually don't know what's your process because I didn't go to infantry basic. So guys will volunteer for, guys and gals now will volunteer for RASP. Is it RASP? Yeah, RASP 1 or 18 X-ray. They just come in as 11 X-rays and then they'll switch over. So you were able to volunteer. So was an SF the guy that came through and said, who wants to be a Green Beret or what?
Yeah, if I remember right, it was a recruiter who came. We had somebody from Rangerback come and do the whole RASP recruitment speech, and then we had SF recruiters who came through. Now there were a group of 18 X-rays who had that actual contract in basic, and so I kind of paired up with some of them, made friends with them. Although I'm friends with most people, but with them. And I just made sure that when the recruiters came for that brief, that I was there and I would like went up to them because I understood that it may not be, it wasn't a common thing for a female to either volunteer or do this or want to do this or be in this. So I wanted to make sure that I was, you know, if I had to nag somebody to get something or get somewhere, like I was there to, show face and be, adamant. Hey, I want to do this. I do qualify. Um, I need to sign this volunteer. I need that. So yeah, it was like recruiters who came through and did it.
And so how's that play out after you're done with airborne school? What happens next?
So after we got done with airborne school, we took a bus straight up to Bragg, and I checked into SWIC, student company, and And so I was there November, December, and then I believe it was January, February, where I went to the pre-SFAS, which it had a I can't remember exactly what they called it.
SOPSI.
SOPSI, that's it. I went to SOPSI. I think it was January or early February. It was cold. But I went to SOPSI with the group that was at SWIC at the time, and I was just in student company for a little while. I did get sick. I had pneumonia in both lungs when I got back, and so that took me out for quite a while. And then so I was just at SWIC in student company and going through, what everybody else did as we were waiting to go to SFAS for the first time. Um, and then I went to SFAS, what I call it, SFAS 1 in June. I believe it was June of 2019. Um, and my time at SWIC, like I I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but again, I didn't understand. I didn't know, I didn't really have a lot of expectation. I didn't know what to think. But my time at SWIC was actually pretty good. I mean, I had time to work out, had time to adjust. Nobody treated me differently. There was another female who was there who had already been to selection. She didn't make it, and I don't remember why, but we were roommates for a little while. So I had a friend, um, and my cadre were really good cadre. I made friends. Nobody really. I mean, I got some weird looks every now and then at the DFAC for sure, but there was no um, different treatment. I very much felt like everybody else. I went over across the street to our happy place and got smoked the same way everybody else did. I did the same thing, and even though it was difficult, it was hard. And the workouts were in the mornings that we did, the runs, the ruck runs that they had us doing. I was just so happy to be there because I was like, okay, this is what I asked for. This is what I signed up for. This is it. And I'm just glad that I'm here. Um, but it was a good experience. I had I had a good time there. Like again, it wasn't. I felt no different. I was never made to feel different at all, and I appreciated that so much.
Good. That's good to hear. Um, Cadre, by that point in time, they got other shit to worry about. We're gonna hold the standard. All right, we got to, and it's there. There's a lot more eyes on SWIC now than there used to be.
Yes.
This is just me throwing this out there. God, if you would have gone in like 2002, 2003, I'm not saying this is 100%. It's a chance those cadre would have made everybody quit until you quit.
Yeah. And yeah,
All anybody that shows up because
yeah,
they would. Oof, people come on the show and tell me these stories and stuff and go, oh man, I don't know if I would have passed if I went through that shit. Fuck that. They were
yeah.
brutal back then.
I've
It's
heard
not the
some of the
same.
same stories.
It's not the same now. It's a
No.
much different thing. They want to graduate Green Berets and not fucking kill people. But I
Yeah.
understand that was a weird time. That was a weird
Yeah.
time where the cadre were like, I don't want to be here. And these people off the street want to be Green Berets while my buddies are dying in Afghanistan. It's a different time, totally different. And they would just march people out into Mott Lake and smoke them in
I
the
know.
freezing cold water until people would quit. So, times have changed.
Yeah.
I'm glad you went. I'm glad you went when you did.
Yeah. And I totally recognize that too. There's my swig experience is definitely not going to be the same as other people's experience, whether they're waiting to go to SFAS or they've been in SFAS, or really anywhere, to be honest. Because I entered into the military and did these things at a different point in time, and that's not my fault. It's not your fault or anybody else's fault. Everybody's experience is going to be different, and that doesn't mean that one is, you know, better or than the other. That's just where I was at that time. So yeah, no, I've heard so many stories of the way it used to be, maybe the way that it is now. Something I was really enjoyed though was the SOPC program that we had. It was at Camp McCall, and I think now they do it at Bragg. I think they've moved it away from McCall, but But doing it at McCall was really helpful to me. I thought it was some of the best training I have ever had. Like coming from basic and going into SOPC was the best land nav course, land nav class, the best fitness advice in order to succeed, the best workouts, ruck running. And I was like, I needed this. This is great. I can do all of this. And of course, there were times where they were like, we're gonna nail the what do they call it? The non-voluntary or voluntary VDUB, voluntary papers when you volunteer to quit. We're going to put it up here on this tree in our happy place where we all, do our workouts. And if anybody wants to quit during, whatever movement we're doing, you can stand up and come write your name and you can leave and go right back to the barracks, now. And I was like, yeah, nothing that's going to happen here will be strenuous enough for me to ever want to sign that piece of paper because like the moment I do, everything that I have worked for or tried to do from now on, I'm just giving up because my arms felt tired or something, whatever the case would be. And so I was like, oh, this is a tactic. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I'm not going to do that, but like, got it. Like, I see what you're doing here.
Yeah, they get bored too. They got to think of ways.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, we got to weed some people out. And they go, well, we did this one. You guys want to do the old number 6? Yeah, let's give them the 6 and the 7. All right, let's do it.
Hey,
Today
it
we're going
works
to do
for
that.
some, it works. There are people who do that. And it doesn't I'm not special because I didn't, but, it's just something I observed and something that happened. And it was, yeah, I was like, okay, well, this is how they do things. Cool. Okay, I'm here.
Yeah. What did you think about selection?
So I actually thought selection it was a pretty good experience for me. It didn't work out the first time, which is, fine. I don't dwell on it. But I actually had a really good time for Gate Week. Gate Week was awesome. I enjoyed what we did, the rucks, the runs. I performed pretty well and I was really proud to be there, proud of what I did when I was there. I made a lot of good friends that I still keep in contact with today there. It was a good experience. It was different, it takes some getting used to your life being controlled by a whiteboard. Or for us, it was like a TV screen that was out there that would put your
Wait,
information up for the day.
hold up. What?
Yeah,
A t-
so it was not a whiteboard. Ooh, it was
oh,
it was like a
you're in the, yeah, I'm in the wrong time. You were in the barracks, right?
yeah. So we were in the
Okay.
barracks building. Mm-hmm.
All right. That is the only
Yep.
thing I'll say. I don't agree with selection being in the barracks. You should be in the shitty, either metal buildings they had before I went or the old shitty tents. Like the shittiness is part of the selection. And guys, they're like, oh, we had barracks. I'm like, oof. That was part of it. Guys would just quit because it sucked in the fucking where we were sleeping.
Yeah. So So I think where Tent City is, if I remember right, I think that used to be where students were. But yeah, we did have barracks buildings. And again, I didn't really know what to expect. So I was like, well, I mean, we have barracks buildings, great. We're in the woods, whatever. But so we were in the barracks and we do our formations out in the rocks. I think we slept out there one night too. Somebody fucked something up. And then, but it was being an 18X range, being around SWIC and then going to SOPC gave me some sort of, window into what the schedule was going to look like, what we would be expected to do, what the weight was going to be like for team week, land nav. It gave me a really good prep course, and so I look at that as and not an advantage, but definitely something that helped. Was going through that course. They did a great job with us there, or my experience was good. But SFAS in itself, again, I was so glad that I went and I never really dwelled on the fact that it didn't work out. But my experience there was most definitely a building block for me for everything else that I did. And so being there, I was grateful for it. And whatever was asked of me, I tried to do to the best of my knowledge and to the best that I could. And there was times where we had downtime and we'd be out pulling weeds in between like the rocks and the barracks and the bathroom building and all that. And, nobody likes eating MREs for 3 weeks straight underneath the pavilion behind the DFAC. But, that's all things that we were expected to do and that we had to do in order to get through it. So, it
Oh, wow.
was a good experience for me.
Pulling weeds. Oh no. I mean,
We
but
were
our
pulling
area
them.
was not beautiful, though it was rough. And I get why SWIC, they got rid of that. It had to be quite expensive to have porta shitters and poorly constructed buildings that were falling apart, these half tents and things like that. I get it though, but man, yeah, that living in those things fucking sucked. But
I
before that,
bet
it
it
was those
did.
thin skin metal buildings from the generation before us. And I think before that, they just slept in the dirt. I don't know. Everybody had it
It's
harder
definitely been
going
built
back.
up then a lot since you've been there because
But yeah, yeah.
yeah, they had a like this giant classroom and really I don't other than
No,
Penn City,
we had
which is
giant classrooms. I think we had the $1 million shitters. It was just
yeah,
starting to
yeah,
get built up. I'm hoping, someday I'll get invited out to observe, be an OC or something like that. But that's just like a
that'd be
pipe
pretty
dream
cool.
at this point. Yeah, I I, I love the process. I love regiment. It's very special to me, and I want to do everything I can to make it better than I left it. I feel like I owe a lot still to regiment. I didn't get to fulfill everything they gave me. I don't know, but I do get a check on the first of every month, and I'm afraid of the ocean, so kind of a trade-off.
The ocean.
Or dark water, anything I can't really see through, tiny little fish, waves, zodiacs,
Okay,
things
well,
of
let me say
that
this.
nature. Yeah.
If you ever make your way down here to 6RTB, I would be more than happy to put you in some waders and put you in our gator pond, and you can face your fears and fish out one of our, like,
I'll probably be
mid-sized
no. It's the. Oh well, okay, yeah. Here, my audience can hear this again. We were supposed to be out in 3 to 5 foot waves. When I got hurt on the ocean, we were out in 12 to 15 foot waves, and that's the only time
Oh,
in my life I thought I was going to die. And
oh, I bet.
I just like I just I don't like the waves crashing. I don't like but I was in the pool yesterday. I swim a lot, and I try not to let it uh, beat me up. I'm good in the pool. I can, in my mind, I'm like, man, if I have to go to dive school tomorrow, I'd be ready. I don't think I would pass, but I would be ready to go. I could pass the events. I don't think I could dive. I think I would freak out. But yeah,
On
some of that stuff doesn't bother me. It's just
yeah.
some of it does. And yeah, but like I said, dive team, not for everybody, not for me. Fuck that.
Well, I'll say this on that. So we have a dive team here, and when I got here, I've never been exposed to anything dive related at all. Like, never, never have. And I've always heard about dive school, and I was like, I mean, it'd be pretty cool to go. I mean, I could probably train up to do it. And so they run at 6RTB. Our dive locker runs a pre-Mac, and they run a Mac, and then we have slots that you go to dive school. And I did the pre-Mac here with no experience. And of course, it is for people like me who have zero experience doing the strenuous stuff or these events in the pool. And let me tell you, I learned a lot about myself throughout that process. And I was like, okay, I finally got over to the gunnel after doing some like the Navy drown proofing stuff. And I was like, okay, it, I need work. I need some work. This may not be for me.
No, the water fucks with people.
Hmm.
You can take somebody that's extremely fit and not I mean, I'm very fit, very strong. I can run, whatever. But even I'll be like, man, I'm just the conversations and the doubt that creeps in your head under the water and the oxygen. It's a great equalizer. But put me in the situation. Maybe I rise to the occasion. Maybe I don't. Maybe I just black out 3 times and I get pulled from the class. But I would die probably. I don't. I would at this point. I wouldn't quit. I would just die, black out. Enough
Yeah.
until I got pulled.
The water is
But
a whole different monster, especially like there's fit and then I found out there's water fit. I can swim, I can do the life-saving stuff, that we train and if we do waterborne insertion, so if something happened, I'd be totally fine. I can swim fine. But water fit and fitness is two different things. Completely, to me, two different things because what I was being asked to do there, and of course, I've never tread water with a 20-pound brick. You know what I mean? I've never done any of this. And so, after, you go through these particular events and stuff. I was like, why am I so gassed? I am a very fit person. What is wrong with me? That's where the doubt starts creeping for me. I'm like, why can't I do this right out of the gate,
Why am I
But
such a
again,
bitch? God damn
it
it. Yeah,
really
that's
is.
me in the pool every time from lap 0 to 20. I'm like, you little bitch, go.
Also, if you're like me, I sink like a rock. So floating is
No,
my
yeah.
biggest problem. I don't float where the fuck. Like I sink like a rock every time.
Yeah, full breath of air, deep end, just standing on the bottom going, I don't think dive school's for me. But a few people like that. But you got to, the guys that do it, guys and gals and whatever, good for them.
Yeah.
And well, that's one where I see the dive bubble on somebody's uniform. I'm like, fucking legit right there. Good for you.
Job, dude.
Good for you. Good for you. So, all
Nice.
right. All right, selection didn't work out, obviously. You got to go back. That didn't work out as well. Really,
No.
I just want to ask, like, did you feel like you were treated differently, or did anybody there treat you differently? Or did nobody
No.
give a shit because they got their own problems?
I really, so first of all, I did not look for the different treatment. I was again just there because I wanted to be here, I wanted to be successful. So no, I didn't feel like I was treated differently. I didn't see it. I also didn't look for it because like the moment I start looking for that, which I don't know why I would be worried about that at all. The moment I start looking for that, my focus is somewhere else. So overall, no. Was it there? I mean, maybe. I couldn't tell you because I was really busy trying to be successful as best I could. Um, so no, I didn't feel that way. Um, if at some point there was like animosity or somebody didn't like me, they didn't think females belonged there, or me personally for whatever reason, like it didn't it it wasn't so obvious that I saw it and I was like, "Oh, they're doing this because of that." I try not to let that enter into my mind because again, the moment I start focusing on that, then I lose focus on everything else. Um, so no, I didn't. And I went the second time in October of 2022. So there was some, a good bit of time between the first and the second attempts. And then on the second attempt, it not working out the second time. Still, overall, I thought the treatment was, I didn't feel like I was being treated differently, to be honest with you. And again, like I didn't look for it or I didn't see it at all. So it wasn't, I think the first time that I went was probably, if I had to pick a favorite, would probably be my favorite time. I felt like that was a better time for me than the second one, but it didn't really matter because like I didn't make it either time. And once I after the second time and it didn't work out, I was like, okay, this might not be for me. And it's time to move on.
Well, the numbers don't lie in that, and why you had a better time is just in the numbers. Like SOPC 18 X-rays have a much higher pass rate than conventional Army. So you went with your best chance the first time in the best shape, best prepared. Coming from the regular Army, we're only at like 26%, I think,
Yeah,
something like
you're
that,
right.
pass or something like that. So it just in the numbers, lopsided as they are, it had nothing to do with you or the instructors of the course or how it was laid out or anything like that. You were at a disadvantage coming from the regular Army as opposed to coming from an 18 X-ray
Yeah.
contract.
And
So
for people who don't make it through SFAS or whatever, like they have their reasons and they're going to talk about, what happened or what didn't happen or how they felt and all that. And everybody's, experience again, it's different. It's not going to be the same. And so there were certain factors. I went to SFAS the second round after spending a bit of time in Poland with the 82nd, and I trained in Poland for a majority of my training was done in Poland and then in the summer leading into that second attempt. So even though I prepared the best that I could and I had somewhat of an expectation, I'd already been, so I kind of knew how things were going or were going to go. Um, you know, you do the best you can with the training that you've had and the opportunity. And I was like, I'm going to give it another shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But yeah, I'm glad that I went both times and that, I felt and was in good enough shape to do well again on gate week, or, I was proud of what I did. Um, and it just didn't work out. And that's never something that I've just been like, the biggest regret in my life is that I didn't. No, I'm glad that it didn't.
Yeah. One of my very good officers from 3rd Battalion, he went and did the long walk. And I said, how'd it go? And he said, yep. And that was the end of the conversation. So that just didn't work out. I went, oh, Jesus Christ. And that dude's a stud. Like, shit happens. It's not for everybody. It doesn't mean you're any less of a good soldier or bad soldier
Yeah.
or whatever accomplished. Success is different to everybody in every avenue. And I mean, from what I got written down here, it seems like you came out just fine. And I'm sure sucking out of land nav at SFAS helped at Ranger School land nav quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, everything was, it worked out, I think, for me. And again, I've never been one to think, oh well, if I had just done this there, or no, I'm glad I went, and I'm glad that I am where I am today. And I kind of did not saying I foresaw failure. That's never it. Like, but I wanted to make sure that I understood I'm not planning for failure, but I'm definitely trying to make a plan. I'm trying to make sure that I don't allow myself to focus in on something so much that I just absolutely get destroyed if it doesn't work out, And so after the first one, I knew, because like I said, when I joined, like I kind of thought, well, hopefully this works out and, for me, but if it doesn't, I've got this plan. I knew I was going to go to the 82nd, which I did. I got a deployment out of that. I joined my battalion, my platoon, while they were in Afghanistan. I was a bit of a late deployer, not much later, because I got there just like a month or two after they left. But so it turned out, and I was able to get that experience, and I was able to do that. Um, and it led me to develop and to focus on other goals, and it's turned out just fine. And again, I got the second opportunity, didn't work. I'm just grateful that I was still, able and motivated and great, and trained enough that I could to do it again. And it turned out fine. And it doesn't mean that it's not. I think a lot of people, some people would focus in on that. They're like, oh well, then she must suck. She didn't make it, or she did it twice, or she must be the worst. It doesn't mean that I'm a worse soldier for it. If anything,
I went to
makes me
selection
better.
twice. There were moments in the career where a couple seconds one way, this wouldn't have worked out for me. Nobody thinks about it that way. If I would have done this differently, I wouldn't have graduated. There were moments. So everybody likes to say, oh, I could have done this and done that. No, it worked out how it worked out. You went to the
Yeah,
82nd, got a combat deployment. I never
I
got
did.
that. That's something I think about every single day. And I got I graduated. I went to where I wanted to be, and I didn't get to do it. So shit don't work out sometimes, and it does. You
Yeah,
got to focus on not letting it eat you alive, as we started off the whole show with,
yeah.
and that's fine. So, Specialist Jackson.
Mhm.
All right, we move, and which is the easiest PCS in the history of PCSs, from student company to what is it? Half a mile,
Yeah,
82nd.
if that. I mean, I literally just drove down Ardennes, and and once I got there, like I said, they had already left just prior to me getting there, and so I kinda got settled for, like, a week or 2, maybe a little longer, and then I just got my paperwork done. The only thing about, I did not expect the deployment. I didn't know if I was going to go or if I was going to stay in Rudy. Um, but it ended up I was able to go, and so I flew, or met them over in Afghanistan, and that's pretty much how I joined the 82nd.
Rear D is always very ambiguous, especially because now you have had no exposure to the regular army up to this point, and you've been in for probably a little over a year.
Mhm. Yep.
So
None.
yeah, what's that
Did not
like now?
know. Yeah, didn't know how things worked at all.
And and you're an X-ray. All you've got is basic training, and then you get to student company, and the E7s that are in charge of you are pretty far from the regular Army. Like they're on in Bragg, which is the most regular Army you can get as a GB, is being on Bragg and having to wear a uniform. But as far as all of the customs and courtesies, we're kind of faking it, you
Mhm.
know. And then you got students, you're like, all right, I got to stand up straight and I got to be professional. I got to wear my sunglasses and I got to look cool all the time. Number one rule, always look cool. Now that goes away and you go to the 82nd, which is, it's not the 82nd Jump Club. We're the 82nd Airborne Division.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Um, Man, it was a culture shock, I would say, probably, be the best way to describe it. Um, SWIC definitely was different. That distance that our cadre have, like you mentioned from the regular army and how it works, kind of translated over to us too. Although SWIC company or SWIC student company is made up of 18 X-rays is made up of guys who have come from the regular army, so they have some experience there. And so it was a huge adjustment for me going from that environment, which, has its benefits itself, but and then going into the 82nd Airborne and being immersed in, you know, the community, the big army, how it works, how it doesn't work. And so it was a huge change for me. And then doing all of that in Afghanistan, on a deployment and not even getting to establish anything really prior to that with my platoon, with my squad. Um, it was a huge adjustment for me and probably an adjustment for them too, because while there was a female who was in the platoon already, which, was good, um, it's always the new soldier is always a bit of a adjustment period, I think, for everybody. And, it for me, it was just part of it again. Like I learned very quickly, so I learned what I needed to learn as quickly as I could, and I had some mentorship, not a whole lot, I'll be honest. But again, I was a bit older. I did have a head on my shoulders, which helped me. I wasn't, young and dumb private that had, never done anything ever. And I, felt like I was pretty smart. So I tried to do my best to learn and to acclimate quickly. And, kind of if they acclimated to me quickly was on them. I was there. But yeah, it was different. It was a very different atmosphere.
Oh, absolutely. That's polar ends. As much as you can get. Well, no, there's one other unit on Bragg where it's pretty far from the 82nd. But the SWIC cadre, it's as far as you can get on the regular side of things as from the 82nd Airborne, and that's an assessment. Did you were SOPSI and hold and all that, and med hold and things like that. So you were probably 8 or 9 months behind the people you had graduated with that had gone to the regular army. Did you feel like you had to play catch up to learn to gain back those 9 months from the people that were kind of in your group?
In a way, yes. Um, I didn't feel too much behind in my knowledge of how the regular army works from on the day to day. Yes. Um, and then other things like actually honing in on the details of my job and what I was expected to do in whatever position I was at. Yeah, I did, and I was pretty, and I was made to feel that way too, or they would try to, oh, it is an 18 X-ray, doesn't know anything, coming from SWIC, hasn't done anything before, um, and I think that, I mean, honestly, that's just I looked at that as just like a tactic to get under my skin. Yeah, I haven't done this as long as you guys have. However, what you're doing is not it's not super hard and I know that I'll get the opportunity to do it. You know what I mean? Like maybe you've been doing this a little bit longer. However, I'm just as capable and have gone through some of the same things that you have. And I just chose a different route to get here. I went ahead and knocked out a selection, which is just was my choice at the time. But yeah, it was a challenge getting spun up and understanding how things went and what I was expected to do and what those day-to-day things looked like, whether that was back of the unit or, over in Afghanistan. It was a learning process for sure. To me, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do the best that I can with this and I will, learn and catch up. and eventually I'll be completely spun up, you know?
Every unit's like, oh, especially you're fucked up. You went to selection or you this, is that, whatever. And there's always a bad taste. As you said, people make shit up of why they didn't make it or things like that. Uh, Fort Bragg is the easiest place to go to selection. You just sign the thing at recruiting and then you just go on. It's not even, you just go. You're already there. You just get on the
Yeah.
bus. And
You
so the
literally
most
can you could
people,
yeah, you could walk up the hill from my battalion to the recruiter's office and
yeah.
go. That was how close it was.
So the most people that go to selection and the most people that don't make it are on Fort Bragg. That's just the way the numbers are going to go. And it's interesting because, and I'm not, I can't be the first person to come up with this, but I think selection makes more anti-Green Berets than it does Green Berets because it
Yeah.
it spits people's dreams out at them and
Mhm.
brings them back down to earth. And a lot of people can't handle that. And especially the way the course was in the teens, with this surprise selection IUW, it ruined people's lives right when they got into the course. So, there's a I don't think I'm not critical of SWIC. That's just how it is to make this way. It's got to be a tough thing, and I think it's more of a psyche thing. Is that we create more anti-ambassadors for SF than we do actual ambassadors for SF.
Yeah, I think that's probably just due to people who have that goal and they want to do that and they go to selection and that's their life. And then it doesn't work out for whatever reason. And there's a variety of reasons why SFAS doesn't work out. And they come back with a bad taste in their mouth. And then it creates that animosity toward that particular part of the army and then they just die. Like they don't go back, they don't try anything else. And then they are just, like you said, anti Green Beret because of what happened to them at SFAS. Because why wouldn't Special Forces want me? Why wouldn't they want me? Why didn't I make it? I did see some of that as that attitude when I got there because again, like definitely wasn't the only X-ray. There's a lot of people who were in my unit that had already been to selection and they didn't make it, and so that's where they got sent. So, yeah, I mean, there's always a reason that, people didn't make it, and then they go there, and it just, they become sour about it. It becomes hating SVS and hating Special Forces becomes part of their life.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and then it translates over into other people when young soldiers come to them and they're like, "I want to go to selection," and then you get to hear the list of reasons why you shouldn't go, according to that leadership. I hate that it's like that, and I think some people, they may feel like they're justified in thinking that way because they didn't make it, but they were so good. Why wouldn't they? And it just becomes that hatred, that mindset just becomes a way of life for them. Their biggest accomplishment is that the cadre fucked them. They went, but something happened, and then that was it.
Side quest of mine. Only way to combat that is some sort of version of what I'm trying to do. It's like, guys, that's okay. Like you didn't make it, that's okay. I had my path, it didn't work out for me. That's okay too. Still being an example of what I did, confident of that, and then accepting of what everybody else's success looks like for them. And that's the only way you overcome it because that in that acute phase of failing, it's tough. It's tough, and you latch on to this couldn't have been my fault. This point the other direction and things
Yeah.
like
I
that. But
think that's a good way to fill that void though, because, you have this culture of if you didn't make it, then you're a piece of shit automatically, or you're not good enough, or there's somebody is extremely critical because you didn't do something, or it didn't work out for you. I think sometimes that's how people are made to feel so much that it just, eats away at them. So I think what you're doing, which is why I love the podcast and this is because you're not um you're not shining a light on just people who have done the biggest and the best. It's a variety, like it's everybody because there's so many different services, you know? And
there's a
I
lot of
think
people doing the
it's a great
best.
outlet.
There's a
Do
lot of
what?
people doing the best. There's a lot of people doing the best
Yeah,
at all levels, all across the military,
absolutely.
and they don't say anything and they don't speak out. But that's the job too. Some of it you're just like, oh, whatever. I just did my job. 20 years, I did my job. I disappeared. That's fine too. I find it much much easier to talk about other people than myself, and that's what I like to
Yeah,
do. I mean,
and
I put my
not
little
even
bits here and there,
yeah.
but and I got to do an episode about myself coming up, and I'm fucking like, oh man,
It's kinda
fuck.
odd talking about yourself, you know? It
It
it just
is.
kinda is.
It is. Yeah, but it's just a conversation. You're just talking, and I feel like being in your house, you're a little more comfortable. You know, you're kind of alone. When I look at people in the studio, and I can just kind of tell that they're a little, kind of shoulders are up, they're on guard, and that's not comfortable. Like I lose a little bit with the remote. And there's some quality issues and always the chance of technical difficulties and things
Mhm.
like that. But I feel like everybody's more relaxed in their house in their own setup. They got their drink, they got their whatever makes them relax, and they just chill. And
Yeah, you don't
I'm
have to really be on guard.
no,
You're not
and
out to get me.
I'm not out to get anybody. And all of my clickbaity clips that have happened, I was so naive. I put them up. I went, oh, hopefully I get 1,000 views. And then I went, oh, fuck, what did I do here? So that shit happens. I'm not out to get anybody. I'm not out to upset anybody. And just shine light on the right people doing the right thing the right way. Um, and that's it. Interpretation on my part, but I have a lot of people that, I don't know, would be very upset with me if I didn't do that with the abilities that I have, and this too, right? And you with the 82nd and Ranger Training Brigade, which is it, brigade or battalion?
It's battalion.
And they are not tied to Ranger Regiment, but
No.
it fucking
Nope.
is because of the name. So if female Ranger down at Ranger RTB fucks up, somehow that's going to be seen negatively on the Rangers, even though you're not fucking tied to it. So everything I do still using this or you using that or social media and all those things, you've got to be very careful because you can be hung for a variety of reasons. Misintention, even well-intentioned stuff. So I just want to keep my head down and do the best I can for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's important, which is something I've always tried to do no matter what. I wanna be a good representation of whatever I'm doing, whatever I have done. Um, the Ranger tab, for example, Ranger Training Brigade or Ranger Bat, whichever one you're a part of. We wear the same uniform. And to me, being a good example and being a representation of that, and in turn being also a representation of myself is an important, extremely important. So, yeah, I totally understand that, and the mix up between battalion and brigade that happens every time. But it's because people see the tab, and they're like automatically they think of Ranger Battalion, and no, there's difference. There's a bit of a difference here. It's just a different unit, That's lit. That's it.
They are not the same. I had one guy on the show, and I was like, "Yeah, so Green Beret and Ranger," and he goes, "No, Ranger qualified." I said, "That's not what your LinkedIn says." We stopped the show. He went and changed his LinkedIn bio because he's like, I stuck that shit into AI, and I didn't proofread it. I'm like, I'm glad you caught that. I was like, oof, good, yeah. So, just to be clear, I'm not saying Rangers or RTB is the same
Yeah,
thing. They are completely different, but
they are.
the greater populations just see the word Ranger and associate the two with each other. So,
Yeah, it's a big everybody, there's always a comment or something and it happens every time. It's like, it's Ranger qualified, not Ranger. And then I'm just like, if okay, yeah, yes.
correct. You are correct.
Thank you.
Next,
Yeah,
next.
okay. And then it'll be like 7 people or more that will follow, and it's just a big deal. Like, yeah, okay. Well, we all had to go through ranger school to get there. Why? Why why just keep bringing this up? Yes, we get it. Everybody gets it. We understand. There's a difference. Yeah, there's always somebody who's like, correction, it's ranger qualified. And I'm like, okay, and
Yeah.
your point?
Next, next.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
So, all right. What was your life like in the 82nd? You said you went to Afghanistan and Poland?
Yeah. So Afghanistan was my deployment. Then we mobilized to Poland right before Russia invaded Ukraine. So it was kind of in a response to the aggression that we were seeing from Russia at the time. And then while we were over there, they did invade. So we were there in Poland for several months, and that was a different experience. Let me tell you, that was wild.
Yeah, Jess,
But
Jess went into it. And I said, well, that sounds like it sucks.
it sucked. I'm not gonna lie. It was not fun. It was a lot of unknown for us, and I think for probably just for the rest of the world too at that time. And we didn't really do anything. We were there, I think, kind of more of a show of force, and we made the best out of it. We did the best we could with that. But that was definitely different experience. And I went through Ranger School in the wintertime, and I thought that was cold. But Poland is colder than Dahlonega. 100%. So, um, that was interesting.
When did you go?
Um,
When in relation did you go? So you get to Rear D in the
mhm.
82nd. Was Ranger School in between the two?
It was after my deployment. So we deployed in late 2019, came back spring 2020, and then we went right into COVID. So 2020, it was a big COVID year, and we got back. COVID was a big thing. And then in October of 2020 is when I started the Ranger School process. So the 82nd has its own pre-Ranger program, and so you were required to go through that. So I started going to pre-Ranger in October of 2020, and then I went to Ranger School in February, late January, February of 2021. So I went to pre-Ranger 3 times. So October, November, took a break for the holidays, December, and then January. And then right after that January pre-Ranger, I went straight into Ranger School.
So what's the setup like for you? I don't think I asked Jess this at all, but what's the setup like for Ranger School for a female?
Like as far as like what we're
Any are
expected
there?
or kind of
I mean, I know the hair. Is there any other
yeah, yeah.
considerations that you guys have to make that are kind of out there?
I mean, really, not really. Nothing that's out of the ordinary. Like you have your typical packing list items that you need to take, and that's pretty much it. There's really no difference that I took. I mean, we do have to shave our head, so I did that, and our pre-ranger program also required that. So I shaved my head. I think I had a quarter inch of hair when I went to pre-ranger, and then you just had to like shave it all completely and be bald for ranger school. So I did that. So I was bald for quite a long time. Um, but other than just like some hygiene items, there's really no difference. The PT test is the same. The standards are the same. You're required to do the same tasks, and so there was really no difference between what a female does and like what a male does in ranger school. None whatsoever.
Unless you read the comments. But no,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just fucking
According to the comments, there's a
according to
lot
the
of
comments.
difference, by the way. There's a lot of difference. And let me tell you, I do read those comments because they definitely don't hurt my feelings, but there's some pretty funny interpretations of females with ranger tabs, or females who have gone through ranger school. It's pretty funny to me, to be honest with you. The what people will put out on the internet's pretty crazy.
Yeah, everybody, whatever, makes up their own. I have I can give my opinions on SF, and I generally don't. Some things with recruiting and things like that, but I never went to Ranger School. I don't have a Ranger tab. Who am I to speak on any of that? I'm curious about things. Would I've liked to go? Yeah, I probably would have been fine or whatever, or I wouldn't have. I might have got eaten by a snake. I don't know. Shit happens. But
Okay. Probably um yeah, there's and I'll people have their opinions, and that's okay. They are 100% entitled to that. I have my opinions, they can have theirs. But I would say a majority of people who make these comments, like these keyboard warriors, are probably people who didn't go in the first place. And they have this idea of what, Ranger School is or what they're expected to do. And the fact that the female can do that is probably what they're so against. And then there's the other side that um, is against the idea of women in the military or in combat roles. And that's like a whole different argument too. And I would also like say for myself, like I would tend to somewhat agree. I don't think that, combat MOS is for all females. I don't think that everybody wants to or needs to be in a combat MOS. But as far as Ranger School goes, it's something that females can do and have done. We have over 100 female graduates now. I don't know the exact number. I'll be honest with you. I don't really keep up with it.
151 is what our
Yeah. Okay.
AI
Yeah. So
says.
well over 100. It's really nothing new, but there's always going to be the argument of like, oh well, Ranger School went downhill or standards were lowered in order for them to go through. And I think Ranger School opened up to females in 2015, and I was not there. I was in school. Had no idea that this was going to be my future, and I don't know what happened there. I'm glad that we had, females and people who went through before and, trailblazed that. But let me just say that my experience when I went through Ranger School was absolutely, like, without a question, the same. It was what I expected it to be. There was no different treatment. There was no mention of like, oh, well, you're a female or this or that. Like it just wasn't there. And I think that that's the case for most. Now, I don't agree. I don't think that every female should come and do this in the military. I don't think that everybody wants to, and that's okay. But you can't. It's possible. It is here. You can do that. Not everybody, females come through and they don't make it. Males come through and they don't make it.
Yep, absolutely.
It's just how it is. Things have changed. However, the standard really hasn't. Like the standard is still there. Still is a standard, and both sexes are upheld to that standard.
Yeah. There's a debate like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Like, this is a massive undertaking to have this. And, we talked about it earlier. I don't have the numbers, so I don't know. I can't really speak on it. But the military fucks people up to begin, fucks normal dudes up that can handle it. So and it takes a fucking beating on women's bodies as well. So is all of this that we're going through to have this available to everybody worth it to create the few people that just were no doubters, that they could have made it no regardless. I I shy away from that. I'm like, you know what? I don't make those fucking decisions. I don't sit at that
Yeah,
table. I will never meet those people that sat at that table either. And I mean, very little chance. I mean, now that maybe I got a show, maybe somebody will reach out and say, I was there at that table. I made the decisions. But even that's a remote chance. But anybody who hates on another veteran or a service member for being proud of their accomplishments is a fucking loser. Full
yeah,
stop.
yeah. I think the individual decision to go through Ranger School is like it's up to you. Now there are MOSs, I mean, or officers, maybe infantry officers who like they're expected to go. And the Ranger School can take a toll on your body, and it does. Like the recovery process for males and females after going through Ranger School is extensive. It takes a long time for your body to get back to its normal operating, right? You get a better, your nutrition is off, you're physically being asked to do a lot of things. And, I have not been a huge part of the argument, Ranger School females, because it was never something that I focused on. So I haven't really, I'm not going to say wasted my time and energy on getting into it, but for me, it was something that the juice definitely was worth the squeeze. I came out of it, okay. My experience has been, pretty good for the most part. I've been doing okay, and it's not for everybody, and not everybody has to go and do it. But the ones who have, and the ones who have put in the effort and who, you know, met the standard and did well and have gone on, like I don't think it's, the right thing to discredit them from their work. Do you have to agree with how they've been outside of that, or what they've been doing, their behavior outside of that? No, I don't agree with that, but like, their service is important as well.
fuck, I didn't agree with being kept in the motor till 1800. Fuck,
Yeah.
I couldn't even get that changed. What the fuck am I going to do about any opinion, or anybody going to do about any opinion they have about anything that goes on in the military? Just like, oh, fuck, this is how it is. To a
There's a
certain
lot of
extent, this is how it
opinions.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of opinions.
And as we said before we started recording, the only people who can brag are the ones who went to desert phase. Really, they'd be like, man, I legitimately, Ranger School was longer and harder when I went through. All right, man, good. So, here's your wheelchair. No, I'm just kidding. You can
Yeah,
hate
I
me in the
mean,
comments.
so sometimes those people, I'm just like, I mean, good for you. Thank you for your service. I hope you're enjoying retirement. And, you know, again, it's just something that I have always felt like it's not worth taking personally. I don't take any of this personally. I don't care. Like if you went through and you did desert phase, or you went through in the 70s or the 80s, that's great. You were alive during that time.
70 sounds rough. I mean, some
I
of those,
know. And I
that
was like,
sounds rough.
yeah, maybe you probably had it maybe a little bit worse than we did. And like, yes, things changed. And I happen to be going through this time, and I'm capable of doing what, we're supposed to do in order to get through this now. But just because, I'm going through in 2021 versus you going through in 1982, it doesn't mean that should discredit me or, my service because it's happening at a different time. Um, I see. There's definitely a lot of that, and again, like people have their opinions on females in the military overall. Got it. But again, I personally, and I'm the one who's serving. This is my service. This is my life. I don't care because I'm perfectly capable of pulling my own weight as I have, and it doesn't matter what you say online. It doesn't matter what you say to me. I'm still out here doing my job. And that's just how it is. It's not worth getting super upset over. It's just not.
That is one thing I absolutely care what people think about me. So I'm like, let's just be middle of the road, Nick. But that's also my show. I try and but I do take a stand on that. I will, if, and Jess's episode because up to that point, had not seen any negativity, but I posted that episode and I went, no, fuck that. You guys are fucking losers if you're going to hate on another
Yeah,
veteran. I was like,
it
nope.
was wild.
Yeah. So nope. I can't believe some of these people are saying that, but that's how it is. Whatever. And
Yeah.
and
Oh,
people
people
got
get
to get their
upset.
point. And they might not be real people either. They might be bots
Yeah.
and things like
There
that.
was a video that was posted on 6RTB's Facebook page, and it was me doing it was doing the reptile brief that we give students when they get to Florida phase. And I was holding or I was talking, doing the narration of the show, and we were doing some work with one of our rattlesnakes. And the whole, like, it's literally, it may be like a 10-second video, and there's two other RIs that are in it. We're doing this thing with this rattlesnake, and like the whole point of this video is like, look at this eastern diamondback rattlesnake that we have, look at this. And I'm in the background, and everybody just laser focused in on me, and the fact that I was wearing a black shirt, and why is that female there, and they attacked my body. Like, my favorite comment, and I make jokes about this a lot. One guy was like, "Why does she have such a big fupa?" And I, and I was like, "These guys are focusing so much on me," and it just shows like the fragility that is out there when it comes to the some of the people that get so upset and their ego is so hurt about this. And that was a crazy moment for me because we were just watching. I think we got over like 10,000 comments or more on it, a couple million views, and it's all just bashing me. Maybe a few positive ones from people that knew me, but it was crazy. And I was like, wow, I really touched a nerve there just by being in this video. But I'm still showing up to work tomorrow to do what they're not doing. So it can't affect me that much. But yeah, people, they get upset. I saw
wild.
Jess's episode. I knew that was gonna um shake up a couple of people's comments were gonna come out or opinions were gonna come out in the comments. And I told her, I was like, you done did it now, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. I mean, this is where we're at. This is happening. This is important. It's not like we're gonna disappear just because people don't agree with what we do, or what I do. Like it doesn't matter, I'm out here doing it. I'm proud of my work. I'm proud of how far I've come and all that. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's gonna, make me feel bad about what I've done or what I've not done.
Absolutely. Mine is, and like so many people, like, okay, can you meet the standard? Okay, good. I don't care. Good. Cool. All right, let's do it. Can you not? Okay, back to the unit you're in. That's fine. I got other shit to worry about than other people's accomplishments. I got a hard time accomplishing what I need to accomplish. Let alone somebody else doing. Good. She's doing her job. Good for her. He's doing his job. Good for him. Fucking, as Robbie Garnsey says, drive on, Ranger. Shameless plug for my buddy Robbie Garnsey. Pick up his book, Drive on, Ranger.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
good
he went.
advice.
He
Yeah.
went
It,
to
it
he went
really
to
is.
Ranger School 3 times. I got to read this book now. I thought it was a little paperback. Holy shit, Robbie! This is a novel. This bottom one here in my journey to the black and gold. Um, I love having all my stuff back here that people.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And good for him too. I get some Ranger school sometimes, like sometimes you got to hit a couple doubles and singles before you get a home run, but some people are in Ranger school for a long time. Like it takes the commitment it is a time commitment to do it, It takes time.
The 6 month class. I think it was the joke. Some people were in the 6 month class of Ranger School. So.
That's tough. I will say I didn't recycle. So I'm grateful for the
Oh,
62 and the through.
that's a humble brag right there. Humble brag.
I don't know about a brag, but I'm pretty proud of that because I will say, I thought about it every phase. I was like, I can recycle. I was like, I will plan to recycle at least once or twice because it's probably going to happen. I know that there's a high chance of it. But grateful that it didn't. I was able to make my sister's wedding with no hair, but I had no recycle, so I was I was proud of that. Nothing humbles you more than being bald in a bridesmaid's dress.
Yeah, and you can't even wear your tab. There's like, why does she have no hair? There's like, because that shit doesn't
There's a
transfer over to the civilian world. They're like, why? What's
I
going
want
on
to
with
tell
her?
people, I'm like, I did this on purpose, but I need to tell you why.
Yeah, yeah. It's like CrossFit. You got to tell people you do CrossFit. First
Exactly. I
thing.
told people like a couple of times I walked into a building or two at Bragg, they'd be like, "Sir," and I'm like, "Oh, it's because I have no hair."
Well, obviously. So, 82nd, you get your Ranger tab. What did life change for you in the 82nd at that point, or was it still just now more is expected of you?
Well, definitely more expected. I think that's most the case with most people who get their tabs. They're expected to do more. They usually take on a leadership position immediately. So yeah, there definitely was some more expectation from others and myself. Um, I will say that there was a bit of a not dog and pony show. That's not what I want to put it or describe it as, but more of a kind of like, hey, look, you know, here's Specialist Jackson or Corporal Jackson, because I did hit the corporal before sergeant. Here's Corporal Jackson, Ranger tabbed. I was fairly well known, I think, just because again there wasn't a whole lot of us. There was very few, I think, in Third Brigade, which is where I was. So there was a bit more of exposure, I will say, with the tab. And I didn't think about that until the day that I graduated. Um, it didn't occur to me that there would be any of that at all that came with the tab. But then when it did, I realized I was like, okay, there's definitely more spotlight. There's definitely more attention. I need to make sure that I do the best that I can, and make sure I uphold the standard with this spotlight that I have. And I will say it's not always easy to be in a spotlight. I've said before, sometimes I think that I kind of operate in a gray area with a huge magnifying glass on it because, you just sometimes, you get scrutinized a little bit harder. I think some females get scrutinized a little bit harder for sure. But again, with that, I try to look at it as a personal challenge. Let me make sure that I, remain myself, that I remain an example to the best of my abilities. And I represent not only myself as Corporal Jackson, but also the Ranger tab, the military, all that. So it was a little different. A lot more
What was your
attention.
What was your barometer for how you should conduct yourself? Because I assume you couldn't look left and right and see a lot of female Ranger tab corporals around.
No, absolutely not. And so that just kind of with not being around a whole that as much, because I knew a few, like a handful of females with Ranger tabs. Um, I met some that I graduated with. One of my best friends today, she went through Ranger school with me. Um, and so not knowing a few, I realized that, my actions and the way that I behave and the way that I, present myself is um it's going to be looked at very hard. Like, I'm going to be noticed no matter what. And so, although I have never liked attention or wanted really attention, I don't need it. I understand that, like, with extra attention or with extra responsibility, that's going to be under a magnifying glass. I have a responsibility to myself, and to my unit, and also to anybody who may look up to me for whatever reason, to be an example or the best that I can be for them. And that spills over into my personal life, my when I'm off base, that's everywhere, and that kind of goes back to what I said about earlier. My I grew up with a really good name, that had a great reputation, and so it was important to me to uphold that. And there's a variety of things that I could do that would be, a disservice to my reputation. And so I understood that there are things that are going to be scrutinized, and I have to make sure that I represent myself, the best that I can. And now I've got a Ranger tab, which is going to bring even more attention to me. So there's a lot of things that, you know, just be the best that I can every day. And that is difficult sometimes, because sometimes you just don't feel like being, um, amazing, or you don't feel motivated day to day, and you feel pressure to be motivated day to day. And so, like, it came with a little bit of acclamation, but, you know, being the only one for, around, and not being part of a small community, it came with some pressure, but nothing that I was like, I can't, I want to make sure that I use this for good, and I don't turn it to a shit bag. That's a long answer for whatever, but it comes with responsibility, and with there being so much attention, you got to make sure that, the example that you put forth into the world, military and civilian, is a good one, because there are so many that have an agenda that's very self-serving, and I do see that a lot. And I don't want to be that way, and I don't want people to see me as somebody who identifies as a tab, but who has, a personality, and who, tries to be a good example military wise for males and females, but I have a tab too. So that kind of became a priority.
It's called being a non-commissioned officer.
Yeah. There's there's with there being so many few female tabs, there's going to be some who will highlight it a lot more, and who will make it something that they, like, the only accomplishment that they've ever had in their life, and they make it, that's the only thing that they are, is this. And that is very easy to do, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be proud of your accomplishment, and you shouldn't be, want to, show people or tell people, like, I did this, that's awesome. um but I don't think it needs to be such a focus, um, because it can be extremely self-serving, and that's not what Ranger School is. That's not, to me, that's not what the tab is. That's not what, the standard is. And so I try not to be that way.
Did you get to do everything you wanted to do in the 82nd while you were there?
Um, yeah, I think so. Like, when I realized that, like, Ranger School was going to be my next goal, after deployment, there's always something that I'm like, oh, I wish I had done that, or I wish I had done that. But Ranger School was such a focus for me for a long time. Um, I just, I did that. I came back. Um, I was able to do normal things, be on the line, just experience, what infantry soldiers do, what our job. And then I moved on to be a pre-ranger cadre, which was kind of a full circle moment for me. But yeah, I think so. There's always things I can look back and think, oh, I wish I had done that, or, and maybe, but honestly, like I feel like I did what I wanted to do. Ranger school was my big thing at the time. Once I realized SFAS didn't work out, I knew I was like, okay, Ranger school will be my next one, and then from there, we'll see where the Army takes me.
Yeah. And I forget this sometimes with my guests, but it's not over. Like, you're only
Yeah.
7 years into the gig.
Yeah.
But we don't talk future operations on this show with active duty. I don't want to get anybody in trouble or
That's
anything.
fine. That's fine with me.
That's really the only, because that's what PAOs or commanders get upset. It's like, what's going on in the unit, or at least in my mind, what they would be upset about. So I'm glad I just thought
Yeah,
of that.
that's totally fine with me. That's fine.
So, well, no, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't, and
Hopefully, hopefully not.
make a product that the commanders will be like, yes, she is, or he is projecting a positive image, because I hate to say it, I'll say it about you. You are creating soldiers just by being having that spotlight on you. You're going to create people that want to go to Ranger school. You're going to create females that are like, I want to do that too. I want to follow that path. I want to compare myself to her, and I want to go up and try to be just like her. So, that image is what I want to create, a positive message, and tell people stories in a positive way. And to be aware of that. And because again, a naive thing, people tell me that, and I just realize I got to be careful with the things that I say and the advice that I give. And sometimes, you got to pull back on a joke and like, yeah, maybe that's not something that you should put out into there and things like that. So everybody's watching, and it seems like you are very aware that you're being watched. Because I'm just in a lump. I'm just a Green Beret, in group. Like, oh, fucking, who knows what those guys are doing, right? But you're 82nd Spotlight Ranger for them. I mean, not that you are, but like,
Yeah,
that's the center of the universe.
it is. Yeah, it really is. And again, I didn't ask for it, didn't think about it. And if somebody, again, being an example, if somebody, looked up to me or asked me for advice, I'm still like, oh, why me? Like, okay, well, and I'll do the best that I can based off of, what I've done. And it's something I didn't expect because like, I mentioned before, I'm just doing this because I love it. Like I enjoy my job. I've, created some success for myself. I had some help along the way. I've had, times where I'm like, I'm tired and I not motivated. But I try to go and do it anyway. And it's all this, and it's not something I expected to be, never expected to be here, but I am. And a lot of that is, you know, help and some mentorship, and then, trying to do the best that I can. And now I'm here in this position, and I'm extremely grateful and blessed that I am here. And I want to be a positive influence. I'd like to be a positive light. And really that's what matters to me, and if somebody wants to come and do the same thing that I did, I think that's amazing. Male or female, I want them to be the best that they can and to really try hard. Will it look the same as maybe what I've done or how I've gotten to a certain place? Maybe not. But, I want to encourage people, again, male or female. I'm not talking to one or the other. You can both do the same thing. It's a road. It's challenging. It takes hard work, but it's worth it.
Now, having said that, a little bit of spotlight on you in the 82nd. Now you become the first and currently the only RI in all of the Ranger School pipeline. What was there? Like, how did command handle that as well? Because did they use it as a positive thing, or did they use it as just you're just one of the guys?
I had really good support from my command when I got to 6 RTB. My command sergeant major at the time was very supportive. And his His first walk, actually, as an RI, was one of my swamp walks, a very memorable one too, and I'll tell that story here in a second. But so he, kind of remembered me as a student, and then a student coming back to be a cadre. It was surreal for me. I can't believe I got this opportunity. It's a great job, but my command at the time was very supportive, and they did a great job of helping me to get there, acclimate, show me around, and really truly I've had pretty good treatment here. I am not treated differently, but I blend in pretty well, I think.
Good, good. And then because you're there to do a job, right? You're there to uphold the standard, as we've said many times on this episode.
Yeah, and
Uphold the
again,
standard.
there's like probably an adjustment period for everybody. You're not used to having a female around. Well, that's perfectly fine. Like there hasn't been a female around, working at any ARTB, fourth, fifth, or sixth, and if it takes a little bit of adjustment or getting used to, that's totally fine. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in a male dominated career field for a while. And so I understand that there's adjustment, and there's adjustment for me, and there's, respect that goes both ways. And so, once you're able to establish that and kind of, get used to the idea, I mean, it's totally fine. There definitely is a way to blend and to integrate to where like you can work together. It's not really a big deal, and it shouldn't be. Now
No,
some people may disagree with it, and that's fine, but I'm still there, and you can disagree with me or me being there, and that's totally fine. But I'm still there, you know? And I'm not going anywhere. If just because you might disagree or you don't like it, it doesn't mean that we can't work together with respect, which is what I definitely strive for.
yeah, that's the gig. You got to make do with the team that you have, not the team that you want. Those are different units that get the team that they want. The team that you have is most of the military. The people that show up, you got to make the best of it and work together for the common goal. So well, that's good to hear. As I said that question, I was like, oh man, what if she gives a shitty answer? And I'm like, I don't want to, I'm
I
like,
hope
oh, then
not. I hope it's
I was
something you
like,
can
as
use.
soon as I said it, I went, oh, I kind of left that open to, something that'll piss people off at the command and stuff. So,
No,
uh,
I think that no, and my command team that I have now too, they're also very supportive. And I've been at 6 RTB again for almost 2 years now, and I'm still learning for sure. Like there are things that I still learn, the way that we work, and that we put Florida Phase together, and when classes come, we all work together. And so there's definitely things that I'm still learning. There's things that my peers, my coworkers, still learn. We try to evolve and make sure that 6 Ranger Training Brigade and or battalion and Florida Phase continues to uphold the standard and continues to give that Florida Phase experience for our students. And then our students come out, we push forward the best ones, the ones that deserve to graduate. So yeah, again, it's a bit of a adjustment, I think, for everybody at first, but I've been there for a minute, and people are just now figuring out that I'm there, which is funny because like sometimes some of the other RIs and Mountain Phaser, or even Darby are like, I didn't even know we had one until just recently, like a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah, I've been here for a little while, so people are kind of like behind, but yeah, I've had really good support. From people I have been around. Now, if there are people higher up that don't support, I mean, again, there's nothing I can do about that except for continue to, do my job and be the best that I can be. And that's just my best defense for that at all.
good. All right. So, how is it? Because it's got to be a special experience getting your Ranger tab, pinning that on the feeling that you have, and now you are assessing people and them getting theirs. What's the difference in feelings for both of those things?
Seeing it on the other side is definitely different. What all it takes in to grade a Ranger student. Um, of course, everybody wants to know what the secret is to getting a
Nope.
go on their look,
You're not gonna
which there is none.
if you tuned in this far, you're gonna be disappointed.
There is no secret. Um, it is, I would say it comes with its own challenges because you have a ranger student who is going through their luck, PL, platoon sergeant, or squad leader, whatever it is. And, you are assessing how they perform tactically, but then also how they perform as, in leadership, as far as like their personality, with their characteristics, like how are they interacting with the platoon? How does the platoon respond to them? And you've got a lot to look at because a lot goes into that grade. And it might be that student's first, second look, third, hopefully not. But if it is, there's a lot that goes into that. And so, um, being on the other side and being a cadre and knowing what all you have to look for and look at. I have a lot of appreciation for my cadre or my RIs when I went through, and what it takes to actually give a student a fair look, and how much goes into how much work goes into that particular look in the grade that they get. It's definitely not done lightly. It is a process, and one that we take very seriously. And so that's something that I have noticed and that stood out to me, is what all we are looking at, and the process of that assessment for that student.
There's so much shit that goes on behind the scenes that the student doesn't see. And
There
it,
really is.
obviously not, because when you're a student, and listen, in the course, any school you go to, you're right here. You've only got to worry about this shit. There's people just driving around in vehicles, going all over, setting shit up down the lane. Like Robin Sage, oh my God, the logistical nightmare that
Yeah.
exercise is, to have people not pretend, in Pineland, deployed to Pineland, and to liberate them again. They keep getting conquered every few months, and we have to come and bail them out. But that logistical nightmare in Ranger School, is it always something new, or is it, or you feel like you get into a rhythm because you're in the same spot, but everything, does it vary that much from cycle to
I don't know if
cycle?
it varies too much. You do get into like a rhythm. However, like the timing's different, right? So there's different COAs because we do waterborne operations, and we're on the water a lot. We've got boats we have to coordinate. We have Florida weather. I'm telling you, Florida weather it changes what feels like every hour, every 2 hours. So we have to work with the weather. It's hot down here. We have medical condition, like medical things, considerations that we have to make. Our training area is really large. I mean, we have reptiles everywhere. There's so many things that we have to think about when it comes to putting each class on, and the coordination of it all, and what are we doing day to day. The bub briefings that we do, there's, I would say that like it's a well-run system. Like there is it's a well-run machine, but there are always considerations that have to be made on the day-to-day based off of class size, weather, um, sleep, like it's just a bunch of different things that factor into it. So there's quite a bit that does go on, even though everybody is, we kind of know what might happen because there's always a plan for something, though you just don't know when or how it'll happen. But there's a plan for it.
You said you had a story from Florida phase.
Yes, I do. So this is kind of a sad story, but it is it is my experience when I was in Florida, and I think this is pretty well known. But so Ranger School, although it is a part of TRADOC, we are out in the elements. There's always going to be some risk, and no matter what we do to mitigate that risk. And there was a very tragic event that happened in the 1990s, where we lost several students. I think it was like 5 or 6 students in the Crane Lake incident. And based off of those, a lot of adjustments had been made. In my class, class 421, on our second, I believe it was our second swamp movement, we tragically lost one of our ranger students, a friend of mine and a guy who was in my platoon, so a ranger buddy, Requeñez, Specialist Requeñez. He was part of Ranger Bat. I believe he was a recycle, so he didn't spend the entirety of Ranger School, with me. We picked him up in Florida, I believe, and he tragically passed away and drowned on the rope bridge that we had constructed across across the river at the time. And so because of that, being something that was traumatizing to watch, and it was it was hard to see that and understand that that's something that can happen. And there are multiple factors and multiple things that contributed to that, and I won't get into all the details, but um, that is something that when I got to Florida, I have not been back to Florida since Ranger School. Like, well, I don't know why would I come back, but um, now that I walk these lanes and I do these swamp movements on a monthly basis and with students, and I think about that, and it just kind of gave me an appreciation for Florida phase and the improvements and changes that have been made since that, and how I felt as a student going through Florida phase and having that happen, and now being a cadre and being responsible for students who are going through the same thing. That was something that really hit home for me, because Florida phase, and everybody who goes through Ranger School will tell you that there's a lot of it they don't remember. They just either block it out, or there's a lot of Ranger School that I don't remember, but I remember that day. And I remember, how I felt, how the rest of the platoon felt, how the rest of our FTX, because we continued and we finished the FTX. But being a cadre now on the other side, and knowing that a lot of things happen, and just kind of gives me, I don't know, some grounding, some sort of um, appreciation for what we do, why we do it, and the fact that we are responsible for these platoons, for these soldiers, because it's something that I don't know, I just think about, and it really hits home for me, especially when we do waterborne operations. Like stuff happens, and even though Ranger School is very very organized, and definitely there's a lot of coverage, there's a lot of risk mitigation, but things do happen. And we are there for the safety of our students, as well as the mentorship and the teaching. So that was a part of my experience, and I don't want anybody else to experience that, because that's pretty rough. But yeah, that's something that I think about quite often.
That's a hard lesson to learn.
It is. It is. It's difficult to lose somebody that you go through any difficulty with that way, because it just seems so unnecessary, and something that definitely shouldn't have happened. I think a lot of death is that way too. um, and it's difficult to know that that happened, and now a as an RI, it's my responsibility to keep these students safe, and so and everybody that I work with, like that's the priority, because even though this is trade-off, we're still out there in the elements, we're still doing things that would be considered dangerous, and so it's a lot of responsibility. It's not something that I take lightly.
Yeah, and then there's things out of your control. There's a guy, episode comes out in a few days, but this will be released in the future, so it'll be a couple days ago this episode came out. Um, he gets hit by lightning, his first walk, like his first day there as an RI, and he didn't get to do the thing. He was an RI, so he just kind of hung out, you know. He didn't get to walk or anything. And I don't want to get the story wrong, because it's been a few weeks since I recorded it, but that shit happens too, and it just kind of reinforces, it's like, man, we're training to go execute in the real world, just like airborne school. You might have to do that in real life. I mean, probably not, but you might have to jump out of a plane. You might have to cross a river. You might have to do these things, and unfortunately, people get hurt. People die. Friends, dive school. People,
Yeah.
die. They run out of oxygen, they die, or they have a cardiac event or things like that. And some of that shit happens. It's a hard lesson to learn. But you don't forget that shit, do you?
No, no, you don't. Um, and a lot of improvements and changes were made, safety measures, since that incident. And I see the results of that today with our procedures, and how we handle what we call the swamp days, when they're taking boats down the river, or crossing the Yellow River and building the rope bridge. And so Yeah, it's one of the days that I remember vividly, and I see it because it's the same swamp. It's the same one. And I think a couple of years ago too, in mountains, there were two students, I believe it was just two. A lightning struck a tree, and the tree fell on them, and they died. And things happen. Um, so there's a lot to be said, for safety and risk management. But I will say, like, that's something like I'll never not think about every month, every class that we get, and we go and do this type of thing. So it's kind of a special outlook on it, just because, and everybody I think in my platoon during that time, class 421, will tell you that was a big eye opener. Things do happen, and we're training, but we train for a reason.
Yeah. It's a real job at the end of the
It
day. It's a
is. It
real
is.
job with real consequences, and you can only mitigate so much. And I think about that for mine. Like, could they have done a better job? Yeah, probably. Somebody's bound to get injured. Somebody's bound to get killed also. So it's kind of a shitty way to look at it as well.
It
But
is.
I
Yeah.
guess
But
it
it's a
helps.
reality. It's a reality.
Yeah, it helps things be okay. And when you think about it, but the family's not okay. They're not. That doesn't make them feel any better. So
No. But it was it was an interesting time, and we had a little memorial for him too before we left Florida phase. Um, and there's also a little memorial inside a battalion for all of our lost Rangers at the time. Um, but yeah, I there's a reason why we teach the things that we do, and so it's all for a reason. And as a student, you see that, and you're like, oh my, how did this happen? What how? And from the other side, you can see that this stuff does happen, and you can train, and you can put as many safety measures in as possible, but sometimes it just happens. And anyway, that's just like one of those stories from my experience that I had.
yeah, there was an incident in the Q course a few years back, and I've now spoken to cadre students at the table, other people that were cadre that weren't there. Everybody had gotten a lot of the story, and man, they can't explain it. They, people got in trouble, obviously, and somebody's got to be held accountable, and I can't make sense of it. And possession, yeah, it happens, but we got to move on,
Yeah, yeah,
and do the best with what we can. Well, do the
you're right.
best with what we have. But one thing I was been curious about, seeing your whole social media and things like that, is what's up with the reptiles.
That's a big that's something that Florida Phase is kind of known for. Yeah, forget waterborne and activities. What about the alligators and the snakes? So the reptile house has been a part of 6RTB since the 1950s. And it started out as part of the field craft lessons. So they would give a field craft lesson, things you can do in order to survive. And then here is, reptiles. And, I think at one point they probably taught them that you can eat them, but we don't do that. So eventually the field craft class was phased out, but they kept the reptile brief. And the reptile brief has been happening for every ranger class since. So it's been around for quite a long time. So the reptile house is very unique. It's the only, thing of its kind in the DoD, and its purpose is to kind of show students the types of reptiles that they may come across in our training area. Florida's got a variety of wildlife. We, in our training area, have a variety of wildlife. We've got bears, we've got alligators, we've got scorpions. Like, there's all kind of things that rangers come across out there, and one of the most common things is snakes. So the reptile house has an example, or a snake example, of every type of species that they might come across in the training area. And so when they get here on the second day, they get a reptile brief, and we go over the non-venomous types of snakes that they might come across, and then the venomous ones. And then we also have a few invasive species, and then we have alligators too. So that's the reason why we have the reptile house. And the reptile house has been voluntarily run by RIs since its existence, like since it started. So nobody's getting, it's not an extra duty. It's not like an MOS. We're not, reptile handler MOS, you know, Army personnel, which is what people think of. They're like, where was this? What MOS is this? It's not. It's purely just volunteers. So RIs are, donate their free time when they're not walking students or not, working with platoons to take care of the reptiles. So that's why we have it. And with that, we work some with Florida Fish and Wildlife, which is how we get some of our invasive species. Like we have a Burmese python. And sometimes if they come across a particular species of snake that is illegal to own, sometimes they'll bring it to us and we'll foster it and kind of give it a home. So we have a few snakes that are definitely not native to the state of Florida, but pretty much any reptile that they're going to come across or that they might see while they're out there, we show them what it looks like, what to do about it. Don't mess with it. And then we kind of tell them a little bit about some of the other species that are in Florida, just because they're in Florida and we have it. So, but yeah, and then we have our alligators, which is the same thing. We have 7 alligators currently. We have a big one. His name is Steve. He's about 9.5 feet, maybe close to 10 feet. We have a smaller one. Her name is Stumpy. She's about 6.5, 7 feet long. Then we have 3 smaller ones, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 3 smaller ones, 1 2-foot one, and then we've got Bam Bam, who is probably the alligator you see the most. The little guy looks like a baby. He was born with us 11 years ago, so he looks like a baby, but he's 11 years old. He just has dwarfism. So, so that's the reptile house, and students get briefed every class, and I've been volunteering with the reptile house since I got there. It's kind of like the first thing I did, actually. It was like the day I signed in. I went over there and I thought it was a cool thing, something I'll never get to do anywhere else. And I also don't particularly like snakes. So I thought, well, if I'm going to come across them in the training area with students, I'd rather know more about them and be able to, handle them and myself if I come across them, instead of, being scared of them around studs. So that's kind of how I got involved.
That's cool. Well, that clears that up. Obviously, me asking the question points out that I didn't go to ranger school. So,
yeah. Well, the reptile brief is something that a lot of people remember, and because it's the second day of Florida Phase, students aren't quite as tired or hungry, and so and when you see a snake up close or an alligator, it's kind of jarring sometimes, I think. So they remember it, and so we get a lot of visitors. Old RIs who worked there years and years ago, old rangers who came through there, and they remember, and they bring their families to the reptile house to show them. So it's kind of a tradition, a pretty unique tradition to 6-RTB, and it's very memorable. And in addition to what the brief that we give students, we do some community outreach as well. We have access to this unique reptile house, and so we do a lot of events for like schools, festivals, in the surrounding counties, and sometimes we go up to Fort Benning and do some events that are there. They're actually there this weekend for National Airborne Day, which is tomorrow. But it's it's a very unique thing, and it's definitely not something that you get to do every day, which is why I got so involved. And yeah, if you look at like my social media or something, you're going to see a lot of alligators because we do a lot of things with them. And we've gotten to the point to where sometimes people in surrounding cities will call us when they need removal. So there was an alligator in an apartment complex pond a couple of weeks ago, and they called us and we came and got him and put him in our pond. But it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. It's not for everybody. Not all the RIs do it, but the ones that do, we're pretty passionate about it, and we try to take care of our animals as best we can.
that's cool. I mean, I saw it and I went, "What the fuck is this?" But now that all clears that up, and I was
I'm
like, "All
telling
right,
you,
yeah."
if you ever come down here, please let me know. I'll take you to the reptile house, and you can, if you want, you can hold some of our animals. The close encounter with the alligator kind, as I like to call it.
I have so many places to go. I really need to make a loop of it. We got SFRE in Florida coming up in September. We've got I got to get down to the Army Marksmanship Unit at Benning, and with my old commander runs it down there, so I got to go see him. Now I got to go hang out with the reptiles and um, down at Ranger School. But so, all right, well,
All you
cool,
gotta do is
fucking
let me
cool.
know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
all you gotta do is let me know.
We gotta pack up the dogs and take a trip down there. But so what's it like being an RI? I mean, female or male aside, what's it like being an RI? And do you ever, because everybody's sucking, but every once
Yeah.
in a while you got to see somebody and you go, this person's not human.
We do. I mean, yeah, you see a couple of students who are, handling a little bit better than others. There's always going to be ones who are more motivated. Not, it's not as hard for them to operate on less sleep or little food. And there's. I'm not going to say that every student is the same. Although I'll be honest with you, when they are all bald, they do all look the same out there sometimes. But, like, I mean, we see all, variety of students that handle it better, students that aren't handling it as great, ones who think they've reached the end of the road before they even get there, their go in Florida, and those who are still scared. So, I mean, it's pretty it's kind of the same. Um, some people do stand out, and then some people don't. But either way, they're gonna get a fair grade regardless.
That's got to be interesting. I would have liked to have been a cadre at the schoolhouse and seen how the other side of things worked and do that. But it's fun to just hear stories. You get to go back and you get to see the other side, and you get to,
Yeah.
mentor, encourage people, and hey, maybe you should do this here. Hey, what do you? And then they start breathing, and they go, "That ain't gonna fucking work, Ranger."
Yeah, there is a lot of that. There's sometimes they'll do stuff and we'll just be looking at it just like, and really don't say anything, but you could just look at it and you're like, I don't think that's gonna work, but when we'll
We
do
can
it.
try it. We can try it.
We're gonna do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
if you're lost, that means I'm just getting extra steps in for my step count for the day. Like they'll figure it out.
we we had this, cadre and stuff. We had the civilian cadre at SUT, the infantry portion of the course, and this dude did not pay attention one little bit. Yeah, I think he had a ranger tab. He's in the back reading his Bible and making notes, and they're giving the op order. And he goes, "Oh, are you done?" And he closes it and he just eviscerates them how much they fucking suck, and that's not going to work. And he's like, "Here's what we need to do." Have you gotten to that point where you're just hearing this sit and going, "That's going to work. That's not going to work."
I mean, sometimes, yeah. Like sometimes you think, or you look around now. Some of our PL walkers are excellent at, picking out the things during the op board that they know are not going to work, or they are able to kind of dissect how the students do things and give them some great feedback. But typically, the plan that like students come up with, they're gonna execute. Like the plan may not be great, but we're gonna execute it. Because that's part of the PL's look. That's the criteria, or part of the criteria, for them, for that entire round of leadership. And then we've got your squad leaders and your platoon sergeant who are working the patrol base, or the mission, whatever they're doing at the time. Like everybody has their specific jobs that they and the things that they have to do for that. So I mean, yeah, we kind of see. Of course, we know these objectives. We walk them every month. And so we kind of know typically how students are going to set up their ambush or their raid, whatever it is that they're doing, or their defense. And we kind of know based off of what classes have done before how they're going to do it, and typically how they're going to execute it. But it just comes down to how those individuals do and how well they are, how good they are at command and control, whatever piece of that, um, of the plan that they're executing. So yeah, there's definitely things that we see and we're like, okay, yeah, we see that pretty often. They did that well. And there were other things we see and we're like, I have never seen that before, and I can't believe they did that. But honestly, as a student, I can remember some of my looks. I think that I'm just crushing it, and it could be the most dog shit of a look that's ever happened. It could be like the worst that anybody's ever seen. And as a student, being tired and hungry, I'm like, yeah, I can just crush this. And I mean, sometimes you can kind of tell when they think that, but I mean, yeah, we've kind of seen it all. Every now and then there'll be a surprise, and we're like, oh, okay, that's different. But overall, like everybody, pretty much does the same thing.
Yeah, it's like that apparatus at Team Week. Like we thought we were building a great machine, and we did not. We didn't build jack shit. We built a boat anchor that we drug for 6 miles, and sometimes you rigged it, you jump it, candidate, bring it in there. So
That's how I like, you pack the ruck this way, you still have to carry it the same amount of distance, like you planned this, you guys came up with this is your SOP, like you're gonna have to do it. And if it fails, you just, refine. And but sometimes it can be kind of funny because you're like, you know, this could be going great and be like the best raid or ambush I've ever seen in my life, or it can be absolutely the worst, and I don't know how I'm going to grade this. But it just really depends on the leadership and how they're doing. All of them, squad leaders, platoon sergeant, and PLs.
so how much time you got left being an
Oh,
RI?
I'm here for whenever.
No, I meant for being an RI.
Oh, okay. For an RI, I'm probably here for another like year and a half or so. But yeah, I've got a little bit of time left here, enough.
So what's the future? I mean, obviously that's going to end, and you'll be at 8 or 9 years. Are we thinking about in-def at this point, or what's your focus towards the future?
I'm not really sure about it. I've reached a point in my career where I have to, kind of weigh what I want to do and, the options that the Army gives me. The cool thing about it is that there is still so much that I could do, and that could be in the infantry or that could be somewhere else. So I'm kind of weighing options right now. I don't know exactly what I'd like to do, but I've got a couple of things in mind, narrowing down that now, and I'll probably be making a decision pretty soon.
Talk about it offline. Well,
Yeah,
cool. I 3 hours flew by.
it does. It really does. And this, it's been a lot. Again, I'm not used to like talking. This is something new for me, but it did fly by a lot.
You did just fine. That was like a 70-30 conversation right there, if that. But I as I did with Jess's episode, I didn't read my questions ahead of time to make sure I have them slanted towards the correct, like my interviewee. But I got 5 questions here for you that I
Okay.
ask everybody, and then I'll cut you loose. And I'm thinking about a bonus question here, but you're still in, so we might leave that one out. But what is your response to thank you for your service?
I typically will say I appreciate the support. I don't mind when people thank me for my service, even though that comment, pretty much kind of spurs me to think, well, I mean, I'm just an RI out at 6 RTP. Like I'm not out fighting currently right now. I'm not in a war, but I like to thank people for their support because I think this a support for the military or somebody saying thank you for my service is them showing some support, and I'm appreciative of that. And I have absolutely no right to um, try to diminish that. So I typically say thank you for their support.
Be respectful.
Yeah, to me that's one of the most important things. And um, if they respect what I have done, even though they may not know how I have served or what I have done or my past or where I've been, they're still thanking me for that. And I see nothing, no response is appropriate other than like, I appreciate that support. That's just kind of how I have felt about it. Although, I think everybody feels a little weird when they say thank you for your service, because people are like, don't bring attention to myself, but it's something that is it's polite, and it's appropriate to respond, and to something like that.
So the name lesser known operators gives me a wide, and it's becoming like operating at a high level in the field or special operations adjacent. So just take the question as it's read on this one. So what is the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
Ooh, that's a good one. Hmm. I would probably go with a characteristic along the line of motivation or discipline, because I find that it takes one, if not both, to move up to that level, or to try to achieve to that level, or just go after something that might be either a higher tier or something that's so much out of your comfort zone that you would never do it unless you had that motivation or some discipline. So that's probably what I would go with. um, that's something that I have seen a lot, and I think that's something that is absent in people nowadays. For the it's a characteristic, but it's also something that could be built. And if you're taking the time to build that, then I mean, I feel like that's a part of what an operator should be or should exude. So I'd go with that.
Up to this point, what is the one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive or redo and it wouldn't change where you are now?
Hmm. Um. So when I was, you mean like relive, as in like do it again,
You can
or
just do it again. You can
change?
go back and change something, but it won't. The same as the end game theory. If you go back and change something, it's not going to change where you are now.
So my first attempt at EIB was after the deployment that we had, and I put a lot of effort into EIB. It was what we were doing at the time, uh, as a battalion, and I worked really, really hard. And then I didn't get it because of something super dumb, or what I considered to be really, really stupid. That was not my fault. And I was so upset at all of the work and the um, time and effort that I had put into this. Like, I threw my soul into that. And I was so upset at something I had put so much into and had done correctly and so right. And because of one person who didn't particularly like me, just because of me or who I was or what I was, said no. I was pissed. And I walked all the way back from the EIB site back to our battalion, and I sat outside of our cough and I cried. It was the only emotional break that I had ever had. I'm very, very emotionally solid. I do not lead with emotion. I try very hard to keep that in check, and I have done very well. It's never beneficial to give in to the emotions in like certain areas. And I cried because I was so upset about all of the work and the pride that I had in that work, and going and doing this, and being at it 125% for 2 weeks. And that was a moment for me where I was like, okay, I have to be upset about this. Like, I have to cry. I have to be upset about this. And it was just EIB, you know? And it was important, and it was what I felt like. And it was outside of my cough. My first sergeant came by, which is probably not the person I want to be in tears in front of. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just need to sit here and I just need to cry." And he goes, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, don't, yeah, I need this chair outside of this cough door right now for like another 15 minutes." And that was a time where it didn't change me and it didn't alter my life. However, it was a time where I was like, I don't, I let go of I had a lot of emotion built up into that, and I didn't know it was all going to come out at the time. And I felt extremely vulnerable over something that, was not as difficult as other things that I had done in my life, like selection already. EIB was something that was very, small, very minimal in a way. And so that was something, if I could relive that, if I could go back, I would I would probably have a little more understanding as to why there was so much build up to that failure and why it all came out at that time, and that maybe it didn't deserve that, and those tears probably could be, more useful elsewhere, but that in that moment, I 100% let go of all the strength and the confidence and I'm doing well. I've got everything, pretty much under control, and I just let it out. And I was like, and then I did it for like that 15, 20 minutes. I sat there and then I walked home, which was the barracks, which was, I walked to, it was so close. And yeah, it was, I wrapped up so much in that and it didn't happen. And I felt like a failure, 100% felt like a failure right there. And the other times I didn't, and I felt proud. And there I was like, fuck this. I hate this. So that's probably what I would do. A small, you know, occurrence, but a memorable one, because the disappointment was just, I was disappointment at the time. Just me with a ruck, sweaty mess on a chair outside of, a cook-off, just defeated over the dumbest thing. And so, yeah, I mean, and I should have realized that, like, there will be other opportunities, right? This thing comes around every year. But at the time, I put so much heart and soul into it. And it was over just like that for nothing. And it was I felt like such a waste. Oh, I wasted so much energy on that. And it was such a great lesson, but such a emotional 15 minutes for me, where I was like, I failed. I fucking failed. It's over for me. I'm done.
That just means you cared about what you're doing.
Yeah, I cared quite a bit, and I had a partner that we were doing with. The EIB is always better to do with a partner. You go through it together, and I felt like I let him down too, because we had gone through all of the the practice lanes and done everything, and I just, it was over, and I had to walk with all my stuff all the way back and just think about that, holding my, my rubber duck rifle and wearing an ACH. And I was like, this is not, that was dumb. But yeah, that'd probably be it. That's very vivid memory for me.
Yeah, it just means you cared about it. You were fully invested in it, and left nothing on the table. And that's how it gets sometimes when you don't leave anything. You don't have any of those walls built up. You gave everything you got, and you go, well, I have no defenses left. I'm just gonna get emotional here. And that happens. It happens. I mean, well, I remember I got selected. And then I remember when I got dropped even more vividly. Also, so that shit happens. Man, that's okay. Interesting though that you think about that all this time back.
Yeah.
Because you're still in. Did you get
Yeah, I
EIB
am. That
eventually?
was, do what?
Did you get EIB
No.
eventually?
So like I'm actually going, or I didn't have the opportunity for a while. And I went last October. I say it comes back every year, and it does, but it also kind of depends on like where you are, what you're doing, and if you can do it or not. So the opportunity didn't come back until so between Poland and Ranger School, I went, and then I went back, and my brigade wasn't putting it on, so we were trying to join another brigade's EIB. It was still in the 82nd, but I went there with another guy in my scout platoon at the time, and we were going to do it. We sent all the paperwork in, and they turned us away and they said they didn't have room for anybody, which also upset me because I was like, it's two motivated soldiers you're not going to let go through EIB. And so that was a whole big deal. And then I didn't get another opportunity until last year. Last year we went up to Benning and everything was going fine. And then my scorecard fell in water and it disintegrated. So I got booted out for that. So EIB is one of those things that sometimes it takes people one try and sometimes it takes people 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's just one of the things that I have decided not to focus, not focus, but fixate on because it does come around. It is like a cool thing to have. It's kind of important to some people for sure. But it all really depends. A lot of it's kind of subjective and a lot of it is just circumstances and things that happen. And I've accepted that. And you just kind of keep hacking at something until you get it. So yeah, even though I don't particularly like the process, I will be going back in October. So
Trying again. And for those,
I know there's one guy I know he's like, I went 7 times and I'm just like, oh, that's a long time. That's such a long time. Oh,
so many times. That's you.
yeah.
Better
I tell people, I'm
be
like, it doesn't
good by
mean
that
to
point.
me, it doesn't mean that I don't know how to do these tasks, like it, yeah, I can do it. It's just when the opportunity comes, can I go? Can I not,
For those listening at home, I apologize. EIB is Expert Infantryman Badge. It's a series of infantry tasks that have to be done in a very specific way. Otherwise, you fail. And
Yes.
it's surprisingly difficult to do. I never had to go do it, but it's the bane of a lot of soldiers' existence. And I'm sure you'll get it. Or maybe it'll take you 8 times.
I mean, whatever. It's just, whatever. That's one of those things I'm like, yeah, well, if I get it, I get it.
You can't retire until you get it. All right.
That'd be awful.
What is the best piece of advice that you've received during your career?
I think probably one of the best advice I've ever received is from one of my SWIC cadre. I can't name him. Sergeant West. He was a great mentor for me, and he was one of the first cadre, the first people that I met when I came into SWIC, and he did a lot. He gave me a lot of good advice, and he helped me a lot prepare. And he told me to always have the mind of a student, and that has helped me to understand things that have happened to me and how I should respond to that and how I should approach some things that I've done in the Army, and even any other circumstances. There's always something there for me to learn, um, and I search for that, and I look for that, whether that be I'm learning a specific task or learning how to do something, or I'm learning how to react, which is to me is just as important. And that's something that has stuck with me for forever. And he may have meant it more of like, throughout your time, if you make it through SFAS and you go through the Q course and you're learning to be, whatever, is chosen for you, or whatever you get, Bravo, Delta, Echo, whatever, but it really resonated with me because I do love learning, and I want to create passion for what I do. And so that's been something that I have strived to do no matter what position I'm in, whether I am Specialist Jackson, Staff Sergeant Jackson, Sergeant Jackson, whatever, Sergeant First Class, whatever I get to, that's always something for me to learn for something. And I'm looking for that so I can apply that to the situation now or in the future. I can't go wrong if I'm that way.
Last one. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
That's a good one. I think that I would probably say maybe disappointing those who might look up to me or might use me as as an example. I would be scared of being a disappointment to maybe another little girl or little boy that I come across, like a reptile show or something. And doing something or exuding behavior that is not something that they should follow or that they would want to follow. I've always said that I want to be somebody that maybe my future children would look up to. And I don't have children of my own now, but I am around kids a lot. And the reptile show specifically, or the reptile house, when we go and do things, has given me a lot of exposure to kids, because there are a lot of kids at the events that we do. And also, like, throughout the military, things that I have been around, or been to, there have been young people who have thought about joining, or have come up to me and said, one little girl came up to me one time and was just like, I'm working out, I'm learning how to be a power lifter, I want to be strong. Do you have any advice for me? And that's not even military related. That's fitness. Um, I, I fear being somebody that they would not want to be, or to be like, or to behave like. And to me, that's that's pressure, but it's good pressure. And it's pressure that I think hopefully perform well under. Um, I want to be a good example, and I don't know what exactly why people would look up to me. Maybe it's kind of odd to think about, but if they do, I want to be a light. I want to be a representation that's positive. And there's it doesn't mean that I don't have opinions, or don't have things that I'm definitely not going to be perfect at. I'm definitely not the best person in the world, or the only military female that's doing well. But with what I do and how I do it, I want to do it well, and I want to be a good example. So if I failed at that, then that's probably what I'd be afraid of failing.
I think you'll do just fine. Just fine. The bonus question, it's a little inflammatory, and you're still in. It's, do you think you did anything special that other women can't do? I asked that to Jess, and that one really upset some people. I don't know how that looks, as there's still a lot of people that are going to see this and that are going in command and still in the off. So I don't know if that, I might cut this whole section out, but you, yeah, take that as you
So
will, that question.
anything that I think that women can't do, like, at all, or like I don't think so. So I don't think that women can't do it. I don't think that most women should do it, which is probably going to be inflammatory in itself on
We
the
went
other
a whole
side.
other direction there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so here's the thing. I don't think that it's for everybody. I don't think that, there are some women's personality that this particular job, maybe the route that I've taken, it probably doesn't match very well. Maybe they're not built for it. Maybe they don't have, the right mentality. And I'm not saying I'm perfect either, but I've carved out a pretty decent place. And I don't think that it's for everybody. And I don't think it should be for everybody, as far as like women. I don't think it should be. Um, it's a very niche place, and it's a very difficult place sometimes to be at. And it's definitely not for everybody. And I don't think that, it should be just for anybody. It's not that they can't do it. It's just that maybe they shouldn't do it. Um, a lot of arguments that you'll see are be like, well, women can't do it. No, they can, right? We can. We've proven that for them. We've proven that women shouldn't do it. Yeah, well, maybe that's what you think, but some women should do it. We need strong women. We need women with a good foundation, women who can uphold the standard inside, at on base and off base. But I don't think that it's for everybody. And it's I don't know. I don't have the answer on, like, how do you weed them out? How do you decide who's it's for and who's not? I think that happens, like, on the journey here, but it's not for everybody. Everybody can do it, but not everybody should do it.
Answer. Julianne, how can everybody find you on the socials if they so choose?
So if you so choose, which I will say this, if anybody, I put this out on comments, I always say that if anybody has anything to say about, like, my job or me, they're absolutely welcome to message me directly if they want to. I have not yet received one. People tend to, like, comment or whatever, their opinions and stuff just on pages, and nobody tells me directly. But anyway, they can reach me on Instagram at jkiloj12. So JKILOJ12. I'm on Facebook, but not actively. Like, I don't respond to that. So pretty much all I have is Instagram, but that's how they can reach me.
It's all for the gram.
It's all for the gram. Yeah. I mean,
For the
that's
gram.
all I can keep up with at this point.
That went by pretty quickly.
It really did.
Again, I thank you for coming on the show, and hopefully, some people enjoy what we had to say. I'm sure somebody won't, but that's on them, not on us. It was an honor to have you on the show, and thank you for coming on. You got anything for me?
No, I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad we finally got to do it. This has been a pleasure for me. I appreciate having a conversation. It's all about discussion, which I think is important. And I'm happy to be out there. I'm happy to discuss with anybody. But for you, like, I love your show. I love your purpose, your reason, and I think you're doing well. So it's an honor to be here.
I really appreciate that. Thank you again for coming on. Bye, everybody.